Yes. What's happening, everybody? It is Tuesday night, 10 o'clock Central Time. So we're doing what we always do about this time. Just the tip with me, your host, Uncle Weezy. We're going to be breaking down all 13 fights on the UFC Austin card that is coming up this Saturday, headlined by Arman Tsarukyan against Beneil Dariush. This is a fun card. There's really good fights on this card. Interesting stylistic matchups, a lot of closely lined fights where we got to kind of dig deep into the stats and into the tape to try to find any potential advantages or bets that could be sticking their necks out there for us so that we can stack cashed tickets like flapjacks on this event. Only 3 events left in the year. We've got UFC Austin. We've got UFC Dumpster Fire next weekend here in Las Vegas. And then after that, we're going to finish off the year strong with UFC 296, Leon Edwards versus Colby Covington. But it starts this week with the UFC Austin card. Like I said, 13 fights, great fights on this card, a lot of closely lined fights. So let's break them down and figure out ways to stack cash tickets like flapjacks. We are coming off a winning week over a week ago. Let me get my handicapper page up here. We were up 4.68 units. The losses were 1 unit on Charles Johnson's money line at plus 135. Lost the first 2 rounds to Esteban, got the 3rd round back, but was unable to finish him. Charles Johnson might be getting cut here. The guy has really not shown anything yet at the UFC level. His only win over Jimmy Flick. He's got a win over Zhalgazhu Magulov, but I thought he lost that fight too. So, very disappointing performance by Johnson. UFC debutant who missed weight and had a horrible weight cut. He knew exactly what Esteban was going to try to do, and he was unable to stop it. A guy that's not on the level of the guys that had done it to him in the past. So, Bootsy Collins Memorial Dog Pick of the Week. Charles Johnson's money line at plus 135 falls flat on its face. We also lost the ass shaving of the week. Jonathan Pierce did not shave ass. As a matter of fact, it was the other way around. Brito caught him in a ninja choke late in the 2nd round. The fight was really going Pierce's way at that point, but he got caught by a guy that is an expert at catching people, whether it's with submissions or big shots on the feet. So big ups to Joe Anderson Brito. That's a big win for him. And I lost a half unit on Jonathan Pierce winning in round 3 at 14-1. I was swinging for the fences there, trying to hit 7 units. And the way the fight was going, I felt like that bet was going to be very live there in the 3rd round, but it didn't happen. Also lost a quarter unit on Chase Hooper to win in round 3 at plus 1,000. So that was 1.75 units in losing bets, but we had a 3-unit parlay on Michael Morales' money line, Mick Packin's money line, and the over 1.5 rounds in the Peyton Talbot-Nick Aguirre fight. That was a plus 181 that hit for 3 units. That was a 5.43 unit win there. And then we also had 1.1 units at minus 110 on the fight doesn't go to decision for Chase Hooper versus Jordan Levitt. That hits for another unit, up 5.6 or up 6.43 units on winning bets, 4.68 units to the upside on the week, which is good because we were coming off a big ass shaving the week before, 6.47 units to the downside. So we needed a big bounce back week. We've got it. I've got 3 units to track bets already on this card, and I probably will be adding a little bit more to that, but we got to break down these fights first. So let's start talking about these fights after we see what's up with you guys in the chat right now. We've got my guy Teretea Paku in the room saying 4 hours wait, I'll be here. He was the first one in the room a long time ago. Hope you're still with us here, my man, and I hope you enjoy the show. We got my guy M.A. Laren saying, oi! We've got Victor De Jesus in the room saying, oi! Yes, what's up, Vic? What's up, M.A.? We got Silky B. My guy is in the room saying, yes, Bootsy's dog of the week, the ass shaving, the analytics, the good times like JJ. We got Ja bless you all, says my guy Silky B. I appreciate you for hanging out, man. Let's have some fun today. Let's talk some fights and let's pick some winners. We got the Cuban assassin in the room saying, what it do, Weezy? I think you should get adopted by Ian Gary's wife. Then he would be Ian Machado Weezy. I mean, like, they're making both of those two are making good money. And I mean, like, Ian Gary's definitely on the upswing here in his career, still undefeated as a professional. I believe his wife works for the media in one capacity or another, probably does pretty well for herself. I, on the other hand, am a very humble YouTube content creator who doesn't make shit for money. So, yeah, getting adopted by rich people would be a great way for me to not have to worry about paying bills, which is, I hate paying bills, but either way, it's not the worst idea in the world. And Ian Machado Weezy Gary would be an even better name. It's a quick little story here. When I do my searches in my database to build a fighter's history, when I was building Ian Gary's history for his fight in a couple of weeks, I'm looking at the stats and they don't match up with the UFC stats page in terms of the aggregated stats. And I'm like, what's going on here? It looks like I'm missing a fight or two. And I did, because I typed Ian Gary into the search. So it like his last two fights, he's in my database as Ian Machado Gary. So it actually screwed up my ability to be able to build his profile properly before I realized that, oh my God, I got to just put like Garry instead of Ian Gary so that the Machado doesn't screw up the search. Unbelievable, but good to see you in here, Cuban Assassin. My guy Tate saying, sure, what is happening? We got Yes Freak in the room saying Scottsdale, Arizona is watching you. Let them know how Chicago rocks it. Let's go, Weezy. Let's go, Yes Freak. We got some money to make and we got fights to break down, baby. Presidente Pedro in the room saying, oi. Happy holidays, Unc. Hope you enjoyed your break. Let's get back to stacking these tickets. I did. Got a little bit ahead. All my Patreon members, the address you can see right down there, that's the way you support me and you support my work. If you really enjoy what I do here on YouTube, you can join up on my Patreon for $5, $10, or $20 a month. You're going to get different products according to those different donations that you give to the Patreon. But it really is the best stuff that you can get analytics-wise in the business for the money right now. I am the market for UFC stats. I come and I share them with you here for free on YouTube, but I wouldn't be able to do it if people weren't supporting me on the Patreon. So please consider joining the Patreon at the address that you see down below, and that's where you can get access to the stats that you see on my programming here on this YouTube channel. So let's get back to stacking these tickets. Let's get back to shaving these bookies' asses. We got Rem Dog in the room saying, "What's up, Unc?" At first look, this card looks tough, but I know we'll have it figured out come Saturday. Oi, flapjacks. Let's go, man. Let's get it. We got Dylan Danuji in the room. Danujo in the room saying, Weezy, let's go. Let's go, Dylan. Thank you for hanging out in here. We got Bob Spikerman saying, Weezy, what's up, champ? We got Ruthless Soda Pop saying, Weezy, this week's card is stacked. Which fight are you most excited for? I think Costa versus Garcia will be fireworks. Yes, that's a fight that I'm looking forward to breaking down with you guys, because that is definitely a fight I am looking forward to very much. And I have a big bet on that fight. And yeah, as a matter of fact, I don't even think I wrote down who the ass shaving of the week was. But there's some really good options this week. And that is a fight that I think is going to finish inside the distance for sure. And my guy Bob, all the way from Holland, saying, let's stack flapjacks. Let's go, Bob. Always good to see you in here, my man. We got Jeff Pelton saying, keep up the good work, Weez. Smash that like. I appreciate you, Jeff. Let's go. We got Bob saying, UFC dumpster fire. Got a lot of good spots, though. Well, let's hope they do, because, even a shit card like that can be one of my most favorite cards of the year if we find a way to make 7 or 8 units on it. So let's find those spots. Let's find the spots on this card, though, first. We got Nigel Lee in the room at Money Bank Lock saying, oi, Weezy got the jacket on. This is definitely going to be fire. Let's go. It's Tuesday night. We gotta put on the finery here, because we're breaking down this whole card, and we got to do it the right way, So we got to dress the right way. We got Tsarukyan saying, I'm keen for the Reese and Costa breakdown. I've been thinking of max betting them as a 2-leg plus money. Yeah, this is going to be, yeah, Reese and Costa. Definitely like them both to win. Teratea, not gonna lie to you there, but they're interesting. They're interesting fights stylistically. So let's get into it, man. We got J Bug in the room saying, "Let's go, keep killing it, Weezy. Always looking forward to the streams. Thank you for hanging out. 31 of you here hanging out live. Hit that thumbs up if you haven't already. Hit that subscribe if you haven't already, and please consider joining the Patreon at the address that you see down there, and leaving me a comment here on the video. I love interacting with you guys in the comment section. Leave me a comment. Let me know what your ass shaving of the week is. Let me know what your favorite pick of the week is, your favorite parlay of the week. Talk to me here, and I love hearing from you guys. So let's get into it. Let's get right down to business. 11 minutes, 11 seconds into the stream. Let's start breaking down these fights. I'm going to share my screen with you guys here. Here is where you can see last week's 4.68 units to the upside, which we desperately needed after getting our asses shaved to the tune of 6.47 units the week before that. So let's keep this winning streak rolling and finish off on a 4-event winning streak here. Let's start with the first fight of the night, which is going to be Veronica Hardy at plus 135 going up against the pride of Squamish, British Columbia. Squamish, stand up. Jamey-Lyn Horth, the fighting pride of your province, will be the minus 155 favorite on Saturday. Fight doesn't go to decision for this one at plus 195. So let's first start talking about the advantages that Veronica Hardy is going to have in this matchup. First, she's going to be 5.5 years younger than Jamey, and she's the southpaw in this southpaw versus orthodox matchup, and we know that that's just an on paper statistically significant statistical advantage that we have there. Veronica has the overall and UFC experience advantages over Jamey. She's got 6 more professional fights, 70 more minutes in the pro cage, and 2 more years as a pro fighter. Veronica also has the UFC experience advantage with 5 more fights and over 50 more minutes of octagon time. And Veronica is a capable striker. She comes from a Taekwondo base. She started training at the age of 4. Hardy has a bladed style. She bounces up and down on her toes. She has nice kicks, a positive 0.07 distance striking differential with above average 40.5% accuracy. Veronica has the superior UFC strength to schedule because she has 5 more fights than Horth does at this level. Now, Jamey-Lyn is going to be the much bigger flyweight. She's 3 inches taller, and she's going to have a 3-inch reach advantage over Veronica. And Jamie's a finisher. She's finished 5 of her 6 wins inside the distance, 2 submissions, 3 knockouts. Jamie's dangerous wherever the fight goes. She's got serious power on the feet. She's finished 2 fights by way of rear naked choke, so she can get to her opponent's back on the mat and finish there as well as on the feet because she's a technical and powerful Muay Thai kickboxer. She has a positive 0.33 distance striking differential with way above average 62% accuracy and almost 66% defense. Jamie uses her size and length well, especially with her kicking attack. She's very good in the clinch as well, using knees and elbows and her size to put her opponent's back against the cage. Jamie has a solid ground game as well. She's big and strong for the division, so she has the ability to use that size and strength to reverse takedown attempts that are shot on her. And when she gets on top, she stays heavy. She lands solid ground and pound, and she's an opportunistic back taker. And she's got 2 pro wins by way of rear naked choke versus Corinne Laframboise and Myra Cantuaria. And both those ladies are very good grapplers. They're grapplers first, strikers second. And Jamey-Lyn Horth, who is really a Muay Thai kickboxer first, is submitting these ladies in the 3rd round because she's got a very opportunistic submission game and she's got great back takes. So this is one of the closest line fights on the card, or at least it was when I wrote it up. On the Hardy side, you like the youth. You like the experience overall and the UFC, the better strength to schedule. On the Horth side, you love the size. You love the length, the opportunistic finishing ability wherever the fight goes. the powerful Muay Thai striking, the slick back takes. Jamey-Lyn has had a hard time finding fights at 125, and now we get to see her in her natural weight class instead of up at 135, where she made her debut versus Haley Cohen. I think Horth is going to bully Hardy and win this fight. I don't like how Jamey-Lyn deals with pressure, but since that isn't really Veronica Hardy's game to relentlessly pressure her opponents, I kind of see Horth using her length to win the distance striking exchanges, her strength and size to win the clinch and grappling battles, and I see her as the more opportunistic finisher as well. So I think a Jamey-Lyn Horth finish only prop is a good bet this week, a fairly safe bet. And I'm going to pick her to win this fight by second round knockout. So let's go to Tapology here, where we've got this event up, and we're going to go to make picks. And we're going to start with the curtain jerker here. Jamey-Lyn Horth versus Veronica Hardy. Unfortunately, I missed the line. I was looking at Horth at minus 107 all day yesterday. Did not pull the trigger and woke up to my horror to see it long gone at minus 143. So, but I'm picking Horth. I'm picking her to win by knockout in the second round. And I think fight doesn't go to decision at plus 195 is a sneaky bet this week, as Horth is going to be cutting more weight than we're used to seeing her cut for a while. And Veronica Hardy, a pretty slick submission grappler in her own right, some good taekwondo. But I do think that Jamey-Lyn Horth is going to be very powerful at this level. And I think that it's not an accident that she's been finishing fights. She's got great conditioning. And like I say, she's dangerous wherever the fight goes. So plus 195 for fight doesn't go to decision. Not a bad look this week. Let's see what you guys are saying in the chat. And guys, don't be afraid to talk to me here in the chat too. I always interact with the chat between every fight breakdown to hear what you guys are thinking as well. We got Yes Freak saying, click the like button, fam. We got JJ saying, Weezy, I really like Silva this week as a parlay piece against Guida. Yeah, we'll talk about that. It's God, man, I don't like Silva as a parlay piece this week, but you know how it goes, man. It's one of those things. You might be picking him to win the fight, but you might not like the price of the line. We'll talk about that one. We got Antonio Esparza saying, oi, what's up, Unc? What's up, Antonio? It's good to see you in here, my man. Bob Spikerman saying this card is pretty tough betting, in my opinion. I've got 3 bets so far, none of them on this fight. The 4th bet should have been Jamey-Lyn Horth's money line at minus 107, but I've missed it. I've missed it by a mile now, so now I am not going to chase it at this particular price. But yeah, it is tough betting. And Silky B says that plus 195 for the fight doesn't go as interesting. I think it's a good look this week, and it's plus 195, you guys. You just got to be right about 35% of the time to break even. And I think that this one might finish about half the time. So do I think it goes into round 2? I mean, I think there's a very good chance that it does. So yeah, I think it probably does go into round 2, but Jamey-Lyn Horth's finishes generally come later in fights. Second round, third round. So I think it probably does go into round 2, but I don't know if I'll be betting that. Yes, Freak saying women's fight not going the distance. Weezy, yeah. I mean, it's these flyweight fights do finish at a higher rate than the divisions around it. I can show you that on the analytics here on my prop template, you guys. You can see flyweight fights. Fight doesn't go to decision, which is this column right here. Women's flyweight, 39.29%. Women's bantamweight, only 35%. And women's strawweight, only 33%. So if you're looking for fights to finish, and I mean, the featherweight division doesn't really go anymore. There's really no more fights there. But you're looking at flyweights. They're the ones that are going to be getting it done more often than not. And even at a 39% finish rate, at plus 195, you're only paying about 34% on the line. So that's something to keep in mind. You're getting a little bit of a break there at plus 195. And I think this fight is probably more likely to finish than the average women's flyweight fight. We got Teratea saying, I think it's a really close fight. If the line swells any further, I see value in Hardy's money line. Yeah, you know what, dude? It is kind of a close fight. And if Horth goes to minus 200 and you can get Hardy at plus 170 or some shit. That's something I'm going to be taking a look at as well because, I think Horth wins this fight, but I don't think she's going to just absolutely blow Hardy out of the water. I think Hardy's a pretty good fighter too. So we got Kadeem in the room saying, "Oi, tough card ahead, but odds not that bad, honestly." Yeah, man, they can all be tough. We just got to put in the research and find what they're giving us. If we find the shit that they're giving us, that's when we can make some money. And we got MA saying, "Thanks, Uncas. You got it, man." And we got Antonio saying, "Hey, Unc, how was your Thanksgiving? Was the food good? Just curious." Yes, very good food. Very good Thanksgiving. Went to see some friends on Saturday. Went out with my family here at one of my favorite Greek restaurants just outside of Chicago called Psistaya. Went there with family on Wednesday night. Went to my girlfriend's stepdad's place on Thanksgiving Day. There was some great food there. Great food over at my friend's place on Saturday. Great Thanksgiving. It's my favorite holiday. I love to eat and love to hang out with friends and family. So it was a great Thanksgiving. I hope all you guys had a great Thanksgiving as well. But let's break down the next fight of the night, which is going to be Wellington Turman. He is a minus 187 favorite on BetOnline Sportsbook. He's going to be going up against Jared Gooden at plus 162. Fight doesn't go to decision here. Bookie's saying it's about 50-50 chance, plus 100. So, interesting fight here. Let's first start talking about the advantages that Wellington Turman is going to have in this spot. Let me pound some of this coffee. It's going to be a late night, guys, so I made some coffee for myself so that I could get all fired up for you guys, breaking down all 13 of these fights. So, Wellington going to be 2.5 years younger than Jared Gooden. Turman has the UFC experience advantage as he's got 3 more fights, 30 more minutes of octagon time than Jared Gooden does. Wellington will be the guy who, in my opinion, will win more minutes in the grappling exchanges in this fight. Jared has shown very poor takedown defense and get-up game, both in the UFC and on the regional scene. So Wellington will be smart to mix in the clinch and grappling exchanges early and often here, because if he's persistent, he will be able to find success with that strategy against Gooden. Wellington is 8 wins and 0 losses to the submission in his pro career, and we saw how fast he can snatch up a sub in the Tsarukyan fight, where he got an armbar from guard, rarely seen in high-level men's MMA these days. Although we did see somebody that's going to be on this card later on do that in his most recent fight. So Wellington attempts 7.79 takedowns per 15 minutes. He only gets 1.49 of them, and his accuracy is only 19%. So his wrestling is not where it needs to be, but against an opponent like Gooden, who only wins 13.5%, as you can see right here, of the control time positions he is in, Wellington could definitely find success winning minutes with this grappling, clinch work, and top control in this matchup. And if he does, continue being busy, attempting 7.79 takedowns per 15 minutes, which is 4.02 more than the welterweight average. If he can continue grappling at that pace, I think he's going to win a lot of minutes in the grappling exchanges of this fight. And then Wellington has fought the more experienced brand of UFC competition. And his wins over guys like Marcus Perez, Sam Alvey, Misha Serkinov, all up a weight class, they rate better than Gooden's win over Nicholas Stoltze. The common opponents are Carlston Harris and Randy Brown, and both guys lost to both those guys by unanimous decision. So the MMA math doesn't really favor either one of these guys on the common opponents. Now, Jared Gooden is going to have a 5-inch reach advantage at distance striking range here, so that's going to be important. He's also got the overall experience advantage. He's got 6 more pro fights than Wellington, and he's got almost 100 more minutes of professional cage time. Jared should have the distance striking advantage in this matchup. He has that aforementioned 5-inch reach advantage. Jared is 11 wins and 2 losses in his pro career to the knockout, and his only UFC win comes by way of KO. Jared's UFC striking metrics are nothing to write home about. He's got a negative 2.24 distance striking differential with below average 51.36% defense at distance. He keeps his hands way too low when he's in the pocket, and he doesn't move his head enough. But Jared does have power. He throws nasty low leg kicks when his opponent is the same stance as him. He stays behind a fast, snappy jab at range, and he definitely has serious power, as evidenced by his career knockout numbers. I think if this fight plays out primarily on the feet, that Gooden will be more likely to win the minutes and the moments while it's there. And Jared has faced the better win-loss ratio competition at the UFC level. He's 1 win and 4 losses in the UFC, but the combined record of the guys who beat him is 25 wins and 13 losses. So he's faced some really good names in Carlston Harris, Randy Rude Boy Brown, Abu Nurmagomedov, and Alan Jouban. So Jared has faced really good guys at the UFC level. You know, Wellington, Turman, definitely a little bit of a step down in competition from those names that he's lost to. So even though both of these guys are experienced and well-rounded, I still see this as being primarily a striker versus grappler fight. If this fight stays at distance where Gooden has the speed, the power, and the length, I think he looks way better than the line indicates he will. I think if Turman gets into the clinch, wears on Jared, and can get a couple of takedowns and get to a dominant position or two, I think Turman covers his price tag and cruises to a decision win. Neither guy has ever been submitted in their pro careers, which is a stat to consider here. This will be Turman's second fight at welterweight, and his debut came against a massive guy in Randy Rude Boy Brown. And these long guys are really hard to take down. So I think Turman will be more likely to find success this time around against a guy his own size in Jared Gooden. Also, in the 4 fights Gooden was away from the UFC, between the Brown fight and the Harris fight, I saw Gooden get taken down and controlled for most of the first round versus Jackson, who then death gassed after the first round. And then Gooden finished him early in the second. He was getting out-grappled versus Doug Usher in NFC before Usher broke his hand, giving Gooden the win via injury TKO. There's a gaping hole in Gooden's grappling defense and get-up game that Wellington will be sure to try to exploit. If he's unable to do that, I think Gooden wins on damage, but since I haven't seen any evidence recently that Gooden will stop the takedowns, combined with the fact that Gooden has never been submitted, I'm going to pick Wellington Turman to win this fight by decision. So let's go here to Tapology. Pick Wellington, the Prodigy, Turman to win this fight by decision over Jared Night Train Gooden. Let's see what you guys are saying in the chat here. We got Yes Freak saying white people equals dry turkey. I said it. I mean, I like turkey, you know, and I am a white person. I do like turkey. I prefer it not to be dry. Okay, I like a juicy turkey more than a dry turkey, but you know, it is what it is. We've all got our own stereotypes. Our ethnic groups have their own stereotypes. Maybe white people like dry turkey. Maybe they don't. I don't know. I'm not confirming or denying shit. M.A. Liren is saying, Weezy, what do you think? Do you play futures, i.e. your Wee cents on Strickland, Plessy, Volkanovski, Topuria, and or O'Malley Vera? I mean, I don't play futures. I haven't been doing that. I think I haven't really studied the markets. But Strickland Duplessis, I like Strickland there because I don't think Duplessis is going to be able to pressure Sean. Pressure's not going Sean's not going to back down from Drickus. Volkanovski Topuria. I'm gonna pick Volkanovski, and then O'Malley Vera, 5-round Marlon Vera. 5-round Marlon Vera is going to be a problem for Sean O'Malley. That is for sure, because O'Malley's not knocking out Vera. He's not knocking him out. So that gives 25 minutes for Marlon to find that big shot. It's going to be interesting. Gooden doesn't make weight, minus 575. Just keep in mind, Jeff, that Gooden did take that fight last time out on very short notice. I know that he weighed in at like 177, but it was a very short notice opportunity. So even though he missed weight by an absolute mile, the fight still happened because he took the fight on very short notice. So normally, Jared Gooden does make weight like a professional. So I expect him to make weight this time around. We'll see how it goes, though. We got Dylan saying, I don't like Turman, but I can't trust Gooden at all. So give me Turman. Yeah, I hear you, man. I think Turman by decision is a good, but it isn't a good enough line. But if I can get a fatter number, it might be something that I take a shot at. Ruthless Soda Pop saying, fight not going the distance at plus 100 is a steal, in my opinion. Turman actually looked good against Randy Brown on the feet. And of course, he has the ground game, but he's also chinny, so Gooden can clip him. Yeah, it's not a bad look because we know that Gooden's got hands, dude. And if he lands, you can be in a lot of trouble very quickly. And Wellington Turman, an underrated boxer in his own right, still only 27 years old, but the guy's a very opportunistic submission grappler. So I could see Turman getting a submission or a ground and pound knockout. I could see Jared Gooden getting a knockout. Jared Gooden's undefeated to the submission, just like Wellington Turman is. So Gooden's got an underrated submission game of his own. We got Silky B saying fight doesn't go to decision. Sounds good at plus 100. He's with you, Dylan. All right, good. We got Antonio Esparza saying, wait, Gooden only has one UFC fight. Why the fuck did I think he was a veteran in the UFC? No. He's got Gooden's got several UFC fights. He's got 6 of them. What is it? 5 UFC fights. He's 1-4 in the UFC. His last fight was against Carlston Harris, but then he had 4 regional scene fights. So this isn't actually accurate here. These were his last 5 UFC fights, but between the Carlston Harris and Randy Brown fight, he had 4 regional scene fights. He was 3-1 in those fights. He got knocked out in the first round by Impa Kasanganay. He had a win over Curtis Millender. He had a win via injury over what was it? Doug Usher. And then he got the win also over this guy Jackson, who had about 4 minutes of cardio. All right, you guys, let's move on to the next fight as we have Rodolfo Bellato at minus 400 going up against your Uncle Weezy's favorite fighter, Ihor Potieria at plus 325. The fight doesn't go to decision here. Juice to the tits at minus 550. So let's get these stats up on the screen. And we're going to first start talking about the cat who's making his UFC debut on Saturday, Rodolfo Bellato. Bellato is the better finisher overall as a pro. He's got a 91% finish rate in his 11 pro wins. That's 10 finishes, 4 by submission, 6 by knockout. Rodolfo's got nice striking, powerful low leg kicks that set up the rest of his attacks. He's 6 wins and 2 losses to the knockout in his career, with the 2 knockout losses both coming at the hands of Vitor Petrino. He has natural power in his hands, and he's definitely very explosive when his fights are on the feet. And then Bellato is going to have a massive grappling advantage when this fight is on the ground. Rodolfo's 4 wins and 0 losses to the submission in his career. He's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt who trains at Team Nogueira. He's a grappler first and foremost, and he gets fights to the ground with body lock takedowns. But once it's on the mat, he's dangerous and he's aggressive everywhere. His finishes come by triangle, armbar, rear naked choke, and leg lock. So he's versatile, and he's finished several fights via ground and pound as well. If Rodolfo gets Ihor to the mat and gets to a dominant position, I think it'll be over shortly thereafter. Now, for Ihor Potieria, he's the southpaw in this southpaw versus orthodox matchup. That's a statistically significant advantage. Ihor has the overall and UFC experience advantages. He's got 10 more professional fights than Rodolfo, 55 more minutes in the pro cage, and 2.5 more years as a pro. He also has the UFC experience advantage with 3 more fights and 15 more minutes of octagon time, as Bellato will be making his debut on Saturday. And Ihor is also a well-rounded fighter. He has a Sambo background. He's 6 wins and 0 losses to the submission in his pro career. He's 9 wins and 3 losses to the KO, and he's 4-1 to the decision. Ihor has finished 15 of his 19 pro wins, and he's definitely dangerous wherever the fight goes as well, and has shown the ability to win minutes and moments, albeit, against very low-level regional scene competition. So this is a very wide line, and I can see why. Bellato is an exciting prospect who is explosive and dangerous everywhere the fight goes. He's huge for the division, and he has a lot more hype on him right now than Potieria does. All that being said, Bellato is about -400 right now against a southpaw with more experience overall and in the UFC. Add to that unpredictability of a debut in front of a live crowd, and it scares me enough to stay off parlaying Bellato's money line here, but I do think he wins and wins dominantly. I'm going to pick Bellato to win this one by second round ground and pound knockout. So we've got Ihor Potieria versus Rodolfo Trator Bellato, and I am going with Bellato to win this one by knockout in the second round. Let's see what you guys are saying in the chat here. We got Yippee Kaye saying, hey, Weezy, it's awesome to see you back in action. Your presentation and content are always on point and truly unique. I appreciate the kind words, my man. I'm happy to be here with you guys breaking down these fights. 49 of you here hanging out live. I appreciate each and every one of you. Hit that thumbs up if you haven't already. Hit that subscribe if you haven't already. And please leave me a comment down below after you're done watching this video. Let's continue breaking down these fights, you guys. The next one that we're going to break down, the Mean Machine, Steve Garcia at plus 195 going up against Melquizael Costa at minus 230. The fight doesn't go to decision here, minus 220 for this fight. So let's first get these stats up on the screen for you guys. And we're going to start talking about the Mean Machine, Steve Garcia here, as he's the bigger dude. He's going to be 2 inches taller, and he's going to have a 4-inch reach advantage over Melk. Steve has the UFC experience advantage with 3 more fights, 6 more minutes of octagon time than Costa. And Steve has been the more opportunistic finisher as a pro with a 79% career finish rate, all by knockout, compared to a 65% finish rate for Costa. In addition, Garcia has finished all 3 of his UFC wins by way of knockout, so he's finishing at the highest level possible. The Mean Machine is a force to be reckoned with at distance striking range. Only 17% of his UFC cage time has taken place at distance striking range. But when the fights are there, it's absolute chaos. Garcia's landing 11.9 distance strikes per minute, as you could see right there. That's and he's attempting 24.57. He's got over 48% accuracy and 60% defense, and he's got a positive 5.18, as you can see right here, distance striking differential. Steve has landed 4 UFC knockdowns, and Steve has absorbed 5 UFC knockdowns, and that's in only 5.21 minutes spent at distance striking range. So he's landing a knockdown on 6.45% of the distance strikes he lands, and he's getting dropped at distance 14.3% of the time. This is a recipe for violence, and I will be taking the shot on the under 1.5 rounds here because of the chaos Garcia causes at range. Garcia has a nasty left hand, and if it lands, bodies hit the floor. His knockout of Jamey-Lyn with a body kick followed by a left hook to the same exact spot was a perfect example of how sharp and dangerous of a striker Steve Garcia is. Now, Melk Costa is going to be 4 years younger than Steve, and he also has the overall experience advantage with 7 more pro fights and over 80 more minutes in the pro cage in just under a year less as a professional compared to Garcia. So not only is Costa 4 years younger than Steve, he's also more experienced overall, and he's been the busier fighter as well, fighting just under 3 times a year, while Garcia fights about twice a year. I love the combination of youth combined with an experience and activity advantage for Costa in this matchup. Melk is a very well-rounded mixed martial artist. He's 20 wins and 6 losses in his career, and he's got 6 wins by way of submission, 7 by knockout, and 7 by decision. He's not a one-trick pony. He can win fights in multiple ways. He has the capability to win minutes and moments, and he trains at a good gym, which is Shootbox Jamey-Lyn. This kid is experienced, well-tested, well-rounded, tough, and game. He's definitely a prospect to watch out for at featherweight. And Costa's conditioning is really good. He pushes a high-volume pace, and he has the conditioning to press that pace for the full 15 minutes. I like Melk's southpaw striking game. He loves to throw nasty kicks to the body. He counters well, and he does a great job of mixing up his punches and kicks to all targets. Melk has put on a clinic at distance in the UFC. In 15.8 minutes of distance striking time, he's got a positive 4.05 distance striking differential with 45% accuracy and just under 69% defense. His accuracy, defense, differential, strikes landed, and attempted per minute are all way above average for the featherweight division. Melk is skilled, he's versatile, he's busy and powerful at range, and he showed that in the Lingo fight, beating 7 shades of shit out of him for 3 rounds, outlanding him 93-39 at distance and tenderizing his midsection with a steady diet of body kicks. Costa even outstruck Thiago Moises at distance, up a weight class on short notice, 21-11 at distance. So Melk is going to be very comfortable at distance striking range here, even though Garcia is very dangerous there as well. And Melk is probably going to be the guy who's more likely to win minutes and moments in the grappling exchanges in this fight. Melk is 6-2 to the submission in his career, while Garcia is 0 wins and 1 loss. Neither guy wins more than 35% of the control time positions in their fights, but Costa made his UFC debut up a weight class on short notice versus Thiago Moises and got out-grappled in that fight. But if we excuse that performance and keep in mind that Steve Garcia has been controlled an alarming 58.7% of his UFC cage time, then it seems pretty clear that the more experienced Costa, who has 6 career wins by submission, is the more likely minute and moment winner on the mat in this matchup. So this is a southpaw versus southpaw matchup. We've seen Garcia face 2 southpaws in the UFC, Chase Hooper and Luis Pena, with varying levels of success. I love the youth, the experience, the conditioning, the well-rounded skill set, and minute and moment winning potential Melquizael Costa brings to this fight. Garcia is very hittable and chinny, so I think Melk could KO him early to the head or to the body, or if he doesn't feel comfortable fighting another southpaw with power like Garcia on the feet, he can always choose to mix in the grappling. Garcia has serious power in his own right, and he has more UFC experience than Melquizael. Whenever these fights are at distance striking range, chaos ensues and people get served. I see this fight being an all-action war from the word fight, where somebody gets served via KO in the first 7.5 minutes. I'm picking Costa to win this fight by first-round knockout, and I love the under 1.5 rounds at plus money in this spot. And I personally bet 1.5 units on the under 1.5 rounds in this fight at plus 132 on BetOnline Sportsbook. It's one of my favorite bets of the week. I can't wait for this fight, but I do really like Melquizael Costa to get the job done early and in violent fashion here. So I am picking Melquizael Costa to win this fight by knockout in the very first round against the very chinny Steve Garcia. And either way, the read on this fight is that somebody gets served in the first 7.5 minutes. Let's see what you guys are saying in the chat here. Antonio saying, am I crazy to like Garcia here? He looks like a different fighter the last 2 fights. No, you're not crazy, man. The guy's got a ton of power. And if he hits you, he's got the kind of power to lose the fight up until the point that he lands that big left hand. And if he lands it, if he gets a big body kick, but keep in mind, this is a southpaw versus southpaw matchup. So, those big body kicks that we saw from both guys are not going to be as available in this particular matchup as they were when they were fighting orthodox fighters. But still, I think that Steve Garcia absolutely destroyed another southpaw in Chase Hooper. Now, I think Costa's a better striker than Hooper is, definitely more dangerous. But still, Hooper's a dangerous guy because of the volume and pace and pressure that he brings. So, absolutely, Garcia could knock this dude out, make him walk onto something. But if I were betting on Steve Garcia, I'd probably bet him to win like by KO in rounds 1 or 2, because I think those are absolutely his best win conditions. I think the longer the fight goes on, the more success Costa is going to have. Pelton saying, I watched the Costa Lingo fight again today, and I think Melk is a 145-pound version of Roman Kopylov. I see him folding Garcia with a front kick and finishing him. Keep in mind that Lingo is orthodox, Jeff. So with it's going to be a little bit different against a guy like Garcia, who's the same stance as him. These southpaw versus southpaw matchups are always a little bit odd. Different, some southpaws have good southpaw training partners. Others don't, and they don't really know, how it's going to feel until they get in there. But I agree with you. When you go back and you watch Costa versus Lingo, dude, I mean, like Costa put on a clinic in that fight. He beat the shit out of Austin Lingo. Lingo was probably shitting blood for a week after that fight because he took so many shots to the solar plexus and to the guts in that one. And I don't know how he toughed it out. I'm surprised that fight didn't end in the first round as well. So, I love violence here. We'll see how it shakes out, though. We got Bob saying, got parlays ending on Joaquim. He's got Gastelum, Davison Figueiredo, close over 1.5, close money line at minus 110. The parlay, Steve Garcia under 2.5 rounds, plus Bellato under 2.5 parlay, and same game parlay, Reese under 2.5, minus 142. I like all of that. I think that definitely hits the under 2.5 rounds in the Garcia fight, the under 2.5 rounds in the Ihor Potieria fight, and the Reese under 2.5 rounds at minus 142. I like that a lot. Jeff Pelton saying, after watching that fight, I don't see a lot of guys beating him, and he's only getting better at 27. Yeah, dude, he's very young and he's very experienced. Bob saying, going to throw sprinkles on green decision. Also, Steve Garcia by KO and the Benil money line. I don't hate any of that, Bob. And Steve Garcia, some good fast hands with crazy power, and also decent takedowns and brutal ground and pound. The odds on Steve, his props are crazy. Yeah, he's a big underdog just on the money line, so the props are going to be even fatter because he's a big underdog on the money line. So, yeah, man, if Garcia finds a way to win this fight, and I think that he can absolutely do that, especially early, there's going to be like a Steve Garcia by first round KO. Dude, that's always a live bet, and you could probably get that better than plus 1,000 this week. Might be worth a sprinkle. But either way, what I just did was I tried to win 2 units by betting 1.5 units on the plus 132 line for the under 1.5 rounds. Are we worried about Costa's haircut? Yeah, man, he's had some bad haircuts. He's had blue hair. He's had like a leopard spots type of thing going. Yeah, I'm a little bit worried about it. I'm not going to lie. I'm a little bit worried about it. But then again, I've got the under 1.5 here. I don't really have to worry so much about the side, but I do think that Melk is going to get the job done here and get it done inside the distance violently. All right, you guys, let's move on to the next fight. We got Drakkar Noir Klose at we got him at minus 115 going up against Joe Solecki at minus 105. Fight doesn't go to decision here at plus 110 for this fight. Let's get the stats up here on the screen for you guys. And let's first start talking about Drakkar Noir Klose. Now, Drakkar has the experience advantage. He's got 50 more fights of pro cage time. He's got 2.5 more years as a pro fighter, 3 more fights at the UFC level, and he's got over 40 more minutes of octagon time in comparison to Joe Solecki. And Drakkar has a high pressure striking style. He loves his lead uppercut. He pressures nonstop, and he loves to clinch up and wear on his opponents. He's not the best striker, but his pressure definitely wears on people, and he has some power, especially when he lands those uppercuts from outside and in the clinch. Now, Joe Solecki is going to be 5.5 years younger than Klose. Joe is the more opportunistic finisher as a pro. His overall finish rate at 69% is better than Drakkar's at 38%. As his UFC finish rate at 40% is better than Drakkar's, which is only 14%. Joe Solecki is 9 wins and 0 losses to the submission in his pro career, while Drakkar is 0 and 0 to the submission. So I'm guessing Joe is going to be looking to grapple here. Joe, he has a very high activity striking style at distance. He moves laterally and in and out. He moves his head a lot and his feet quite a bit as well. He's got a positive 0.52 distance striking differential, above average 44% accuracy, and decent 60% defense. He only spends 23.5% of his UFC cage time at distance striking range. So he mostly grapples, but when he is at distance, he stays busy and he does a pretty good job. But Joe Solecki, the reason we're betting him, if we're picking him to win fights, is because he's a relentless grappler. Over 75% of his UFC cage time is spent in control time positions, and Joe out-controls his opponents 60% to 16.5%, winning over 78% of the control time positions his fights are in. Joe is averaging 2.44 takedowns per 15 minutes on 5.08 attempts. He's got fantastic back takes, and he can win rounds and finish fights from that position. And Joe has the superior UFC strength to schedule metrics, and in particular, his wins over handsome Matt Lyman, Austin Hubbard, Jim Miller, Alex De Silva, and Carl Deaton III. They rate better than Drakkar's wins over Powell, Mark Diakese, Lando Venata. Bobby Green is a great win. Christos Yagos, Brandon Jenkins, and Rafa Garcia. So this is a great matchup. Drakkar is on over a 1-year layoff due to injuries, so we need to take that into account. Joe's strategy is going to be simple. Use his striking to set up his takedown entries and try to get to Drakkar's back, which we've seen several fighters have success with recently. Drakkar is going to walk Joe down and try to break him with pressure and clinch control. Both these guys are solid fighters, and they both are well tested at the UFC level. I do like Solecki's grappling advantage here, and if he can get to Drakkar's back at least once, then I think he's very likely to win this fight. Joe's striking is on par with Drakkar's. Plus, he's the much younger fighter here, so I'm going to lean with the youth and the grappling upside of Joe Solecki and pick him to win this fight by decision. So let's go to the Tapology page. We are going with Joe Solecki to win this fight by decision. Let's see what you guys are saying in the chat. And you're saying nothing. So let's move on to the next fight, which is going to be a really fun one. It's going to be Zach Reese, the hometown Texas boy, going up against Cody Brundage. Let me get these stats up on the screen for you guys. We got Zach Reese right now on BetOnline Sportsbook is a -225 favorite on the money line. Cody Brundage, the underdog, +190. Fight doesn't go to decision here. Set at -550. Absolutely juiced to the tits for this fight. So let's first start talking about Zach Reese, who's going to be making his UFC debut here on Saturday. Zach Reese, the fighting pride of Shiner, Texas, going to be fighting in front of that hometown crowd in Austin, Texas. So Zach Reese is a huge middleweight. He's going to be 4 inches taller and have a 5-inch reach advantage here versus Cody, in addition to being a switch stance fighter versus an orthodox fighter. Lots of measurables advantages for Reese in this fight. And Zach is a very opportunistic finisher, whether it's on the feet with his striking, where he's 4 wins and 0 losses in his career to the KO, or whether it's his opportunistic submission game. We've seen him used to get an armbar from guard versus Aronov on Dana White's Contender Series, and a high elbow guillotine in Fury FC versus Aaron Phillips, who's a decent regional scene veteran. This guy can finish fights wherever they go. It still remains to be seen how Zach's finishing skills will translate against UFC level competition, but it needs to be noted that this kid looks to have all the tools necessary to go a long way in the middleweight division if he's able to harness his measurables advantages and learn how to win minutes instead of just moments. But from what we've seen on tape so far, this kid does have the necessary tools to put it all together and go a long way here. Now, Cody Brundage has the overall and UFC experience advantages. He's got 8 more professional fights. He's got 95 more minutes of pro cage time, and he's got 2 more years as a professional fighter. Cody also has 7 more fights at the UFC level and over 50 more minutes in the UFC octagon, as Zach will be making his UFC debut on Saturday. Cody's UFC striking metrics, albeit in a small sample size, are really good. He's got a positive 1.47 distance striking differential, 38% accuracy, and he's got way above average 67% distance striking defense. Cody has 2 UFC knockdowns to his credit, landing a knockdown on 4.76% of the distance strikes that he lands, and 2 of his 3 UFC wins come by way of KO, DKO, DQ. Cody trains at Factory X with some really good kickboxers, so I think he's going to be in decent shape at distance striking range, and Zach Reese is very hittable. Cody can wrestle. He was a 2-time Division II Nationals qualifier at Newberry University. He gets 2.33 takedowns per 15 minutes, and he's completing his takedowns at over a 53% clip. Cody should be the better minute winner in the wrestling and grappling exchanges here, but he will have to be very careful to stay out of the submissions of Reese, who is very opportunistic. And Cody has the UFC strength to schedule advantage, obviously, as Reese is making his UFC debut after fighting a very low level of regional scene competition. Cody's 7 UFC opponents have a combined record of 21 wins and 19 losses. So this is going to be a very big step up in competition for Zach Reese. Let's see how he handles it. So this is going to be a great opportunity to find out more about Zach Reese and how his skill set is going to translate at the UFC level. He's got great size, length, athletic ability for the weight class. He mixes up his weapons well. He has power and an opportunistic submission game, and he finishes fights fast. All that being said, Zach has never seen the second round as a pro. His entire pro career is less than 10 minutes of cage time, and he's fought very low-level competition. In addition to that, Zach is so hittable on the feet. He's getting tagged by the low-level guys he fights on the regional scene, which is very scary, seeing as the guys in the UFC hit way harder. Cody is a well-rounded guy who has power on the feet, solid wrestling, and a couple of submission wins to his credit as well. He's going to be a solid test for the up-and-coming Reese, who seems to have all the raw tools and athleticism for the job. It just remains to be seen how he will be able to handle the pressure, the crowd, how he reacts if the fight gets extended, and how he deals with potential nerves or an adrenaline dump scenario in front of the home crowd in Austin, Texas. As I mentioned before, Reese is the fighting pride of Shiner, Texas. I believe the city where they make Shiner Bock beer, which is one of my favorite beers to drink when I am in the great state of Texas. I don't think it's responsible to lay the juice on Reese, but if you think he does get the win here, maybe bet him to win in rounds 1 or 2, because we have no clue how he will react to the later rounds. We've never seen Cody win rounds later in fights at the UFC level either. So I think the best bet for this fight is the under 1.5 rounds at around minus 200. I think it's a great parlay piece this week, and I already do have it parlayed up. I'll pick Zach Reese to win by first round knockout, but I think whatever happens here, somebody is going to get served in the first 7.5 minutes. So the under 1.5 rounds at around minus 200, I think is a great straight bet and a great parlay piece this week. But I'm excited to see what this kid Reese can do. And and Cody's ice cold right now. So not a lot of people are believing in Cody Brundage right now. But like I said, when I broke down this fight, there's a lot of on paper reasons that Cody can absolutely get this job done. And we've just seen a lot of people, make their UFC debut in front of a live crowd and and they come out flat. And if you come out flat against Cody, he's going to be able to out wrestle you, and he's going to be probably the more likely the guy to land the big shots on the feet. So I think Cody's live. I think he's probably the value side when you compare the money lines up against each other, just because of how many unknowns there are with Reese. And let's face it, Reese is very hittable, and Cody Brundage hits very hard. So I don't have any problems. The pick is Reese, but I don't have any problems with taking shots on Cody Brundage's money line or some props on the Brundage side, because they're going to be very juicy and you won't have to risk a lot to make a lot. But Reese by first round knockout is going to be the pick. And I'm picking against friend of the show, guy I've interviewed twice, a guy I wish nothing but the best, Cody Brundage. And I still might get to a Brundage bet later on this week. Let's see what you guys are saying here in the chat. We got Remdog saying Drakkar coming back too soon at his age. Yeah, man. Problems with the concussion after getting shoved by Jeremy Stevens. And then I believe there was a knee reconstruction as well. So, yeah, definitely some questions on the close side. If Cody don't win, he got to go. Yeah, I think that might be the case, man. He might be fighting for his job here. And he's in the rare situation as Cody Brundage of being the guy that's more experienced, that has the experience advantage in this spot. My guy Antonio is asking me, is Brundage a bum, Unk? I really don't think so. And he's plus 196 against a debutant. This makes no sense to me. No, I mean, I think his performance against Cedriques Dumas was a massive red flag, but he took that fight on short notice. So that could be a situation where he was getting his teammate ready. Josh Fremd was supposed to fight Dumas. Fremd got hurt. Cody stepped in for him, but he took the fight on short notice. And he's made that same mistake of jumping that guillotine over and over again. And if you're going to get that guillotine, you got to get to a dominant position with it. Don't worry about finishing it first. Worrying about using it to control your opponent first. Then once you control it, once you get to a hip, once you get to a mount with it, then try to finish it with it. And then if you can't, you can at least be on top. But Cody Brundage does not perform well when he gets put on his back, like most wrestlers. So when one of your go-to offensive moves is something that's voluntarily putting yourself on your own back, you're putting yourself in bad situations. So I think people are very low on Cody Brundage right now. But let's face it, it was a bad performance against Dumas, and he took a bunch of shots to the back of the head against Malkoun, and a lot of people are accusing him of taking the easy way out. But this is the hurt business. You get a chance to get a win check in this business, you take it. And it's not like Malkoun hit him in the back of the head once. It was like over a dozen times that he smashed him in the back of the head. So, that's what happens when you relentlessly follow your opponent. Some referees are going to take the opportunity to disqualify you. That's what happened. But I think people are really low on Cody right now. But I also think that they're forgetting some of the things that he does well, and they're forgetting how hard he hits on the feet and how good of a wrestler he is. Brundage opened as a favorite. I did not see that. Let's have a look-see. Cody Brundage at plus 190 right now. Did open at minus 155 and then went immediately to plus 235. Yeah, that's wild. But Cody's the more experienced guy. He's the more well-rounded guy that we know of at this point. More experienced, fought the better brand of competition. So there's some reasons to bet him. We got Jeff saying Reese stands straight up, head up high. Yeah, he's very tall when he stands up, and he's very, very hittable. So there's some opening. There's going to be some openings. We got FU guys in the room saying Weezy, oi! We got Silly Goose in the room saying Cody Brundage owes me some money. Zach Reese going to be crowned the people's champ when he knocks the shameless bum out. Let's see. Talk to Cody. Be like, hey, Cody, you owe me money. And see what Cody says. See if he voluntarily just is like, oh, how much do I owe you, bro? because maybe Cody might be under the impression that he doesn't owe you shit. So I don't know, man. But yeah, we'll see, dude. Zach Reese is a freakishly huge middleweight with big power and an opportunistic submission game. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how he handles this step up in competition against a guy like Brundage. We got Easy Bets in the room saying, "What's up? What's up, Weezy? Good to see you in here, my man." We got Jacob T saying, "We love you, Weezy. I love you, Jacob. Thank you for hanging out with us here." We got Victor saying, "Brundage is a massive bum." A lot of people are really mad at Cody Brundage, but he can't be a massive bum. He just knocked out Jacob Malkoon in the first round, Victor. We got Boob saying Brundage always does the thing he's not supposed to do. So maybe this week he wins. Yeah, sometimes that happens, man. You get these guys who perform the opposite way than what you think they're going to do. We got Ima Pocock saying, "Sup, Weezy? What's up, dude?" We got Easy Bet saying, "I think MMA community just wants to see Brundage lose after that pathetic performance." Yeah, man. I think a lot of people are very mad at him, but you can't let your emotions fuel your betting. This line might be a little bit wide and a little bit disrespectful to Cody, but we will see. Let's move on to the next fight, you guys. It is going to be Meisha Tate, the plus 130 underdog, going up against Julia the Raging Panda Avila at minus 150. Fight doesn't go to decision at plus 180. Ladies and gentlemen, if you know someone or if someone you love has a gambling problem or is betting on this fight, call 1-800-GAMBLER and we will be sure to send the orderlies over and give these people the help that they so sorely need. The bookies have to make lines on every fight. We don't have to bet them. We're not obligated, ladies and gentlemen, to do shit, are we? They can't force us to do shit. And just as they can't force us to do shit, they can't force your Uncle Weezy to do shit either. I'm not betting on this fight. I didn't watch 1 second of tape on this fight. Here, let me bring the stats up at least so you guys can, for some of you people that might care about this fight. I didn't break down this fight. I didn't watch any tape on it. I am not betting on this fight, and here's why. Meisha Tate, 1 year, 4 month, 1 day layoff. Julia Avila, 2 years, 4 months, 22-day layoff. I think Julia wins this fight. I think she does more. I think she's a lot more dangerous wherever the fight goes, whether it's on the ground with her Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu brown belt or whether it's on the feet with her powerful striking. But Julia Avila had a baby. She hasn't fought in 2.5 years. And I'm not going to guess as to what her motivation is at 35 and a half years old coming back to fight in the UFC. On the other side, I have a little bit more of a known quantity in Meisha Tate, but the known quantity is that she just got 7 shades of shit beaten out of her by Lauren Murphy. She lost a boxing match to Ketlin Vieira and showed that, the Tate that we used to know, who actually had some wrestling in her back pocket, couldn't wrestle her way out of a paper bag anymore. So she got a win over a 63-year-old Marion Renault after a long layoff. But before that, it was a very long time since we've seen Meisha Tate win a fight. So I think Meisha Tate's career could very well be done, and she might be showing up for checks. And I think the same thing about Julia Avila being on almost a 3-year layoff, a 2.5-year layoff, you guys. That's a massive red flag. Having a baby is a massive red flag. So I don't think it's smart to lay juice on Avila on this kind of a layoff. And I don't think it's smart either to put your hard-earned money on the plus money underdog here in Meisha Tate, because she's just not very good anymore. I don't know how Meisha goes out there and wins fights anymore, because her striking is mid. Her wrestling doesn't look to be there at all anymore. There's no power. So I just, the answer is no. Don't bet on this fight, okay? And check in on your family. I know we just had Thanksgiving, but you could call your dad and ask him, "Hey, did you bet on this fight?" And if he says yes, do you say, "Hey, you think you need some fucking help?" because I'm here to help. I love you. I'm here to help you, right? But you guys, please don't bet on this fight. Don't make me and Brady show up in the orderlies outfits, fucking shoot some kind of a sedative into your neck, and then you wake up in a padded room being told, think about the bets that you've been making. Think about whether these are degenerate bets or bets that actually have some kind of a way of being considered plus EV. Okay? Don't do it. Please don't bet on this fight. What's the pick? The pick is going to be the Raging Panda, Julia Avila, to win by decision with zero confidence and with zero bets. And your Uncle Weezy better not catch you betting on this fight. Y'all hear me? Good. All right. Let's see what you hoes are saying in the comments here. We got Antonio Esparza says what I was just saying there in a lot more potent words. We got M.A. Laren said it's been a minute since we got this warning. Yeah, dude, he's got a lot of skills, and then he puts himself on his back with his guillotine, and it's just not working for him. We got, if you're betting on this fight, Weezy may have to bring the sack of oranges out of retirement. We haven't seen it in a minute. But I'll tell you, man, the sack of oranges, this is one of those fights, where you could see me and Brady, the orderlies, showing up at the door. Or you might see me walking down your street carrying a sack of oranges with a very determined look on my face. This is that kind of fight, you guys. Jeff Pelton saying, well said, Weezy. We got Easy Bet saying, if you're betting this fight, Weezy, we already read that one. We got Usman saying, former UFC champ, Meisha Tate, put some respect on her name. Yes, that was when my guy Brady, DFS by the numbers, was in third grade. Back when Meisha Tate was champion, back when she choked out Holly Holm in the 5th round of their fight. Big time come from behind win there to get the championship. Yeah, Meisha's a legend of the sport. She's just not that great anymore, you guys. Wasn't Meisha Tate an executive at 1? What happened to that? I have no idea, and she may or may not have been. I have no idea. We got Jay Bogey is laughing. We got Silky B saying, I hit that Cody TKO round 1. Got to go back to the well. Why not, man? Hey, dude, like a lot of people hit that at like 16-1 or some shit. I know Brady hit that. I hit the under 1.5 rounds at plus 205 on that. So I think a lot of people wound up did make some money on Cody on that fight, but a lot of people didn't. A lot of the people who were parlaying up Malkoon were pissed. And we got Cuban Assassin saying Meisha Tate and that giant nose that always splats after the first incoming jab. There will be blood. Tate geyser alert. Yes, sir. Remdog saying I can hear Sarah McLaughlin singing in the arms of an angel. Do you know somebody who has a gambling problem and is bet on Tate? And we could see like a shivering dog. We got to do a public service announcement for 1-800-GAMBLER, a comedy one, though. It would be funny as hell, dude. It's going to be a double knockout. That would be great. We got laid a fat bet on this fight. 1-800-NEED-BREAD. Hashtag jokes. We got oi. All I heard was jab you in the neck with a sedative. That sounds good right about now. Give me Tate by split. That could certainly be the result, man. I don't think I've ever seen a Julia Avila fight. It's been so long, dude. 2.5 years since we've seen Julia. And even before the long layoff, Julia wasn't that active. She wasn't like the kind of girl who was fighting 3 times a year. So, yeah, Julia's been very inactive as a professional. I don't think it's responsible, you guys, to lay juice on her. And I just don't think it's responsible to lay a bet on Meisha Tate in the year of our Lord, 2023. I just don't see it. I have Meisha nudes. Let me find them. Please hold. Please do find them. Sally Struthers comes up. We gotta film that public service announcement. He's so great, you guys. You guys are the best. All right, hey, let's move on to this next fight, you guys. Punahele Soriano, the minus 255 favorite, going up against Dustin Stoltzfus, the fighting pride of Germany, at plus 215. We got the fight doesn't go to decision here, juiced up to minus 200 for this fight. Let's first start talking about the advantages that Punahele Soriano has in this fight. Puna is going to be 1 year younger than Dustin. He's also the southpaw in the southpaw versus orthodox matchup. That's an on-paper advantage. Puna is definitely the more opportunistic finisher as a pro. He's finished 8 of his 9 pro wins inside the distance. He's got 2 submissions and 6 knockouts, and Puna has finished all 3 of his UFC wins inside the distance by way of knockout. And Puna's basically a one-trick pony as a mixed martial artist, and his trick is the big left hand. Puna's got 5 UFC knockdowns in his 3 UFC wins. He's landing a knockdown on 3.21% of the distance strikes he lands. Puna has way below average distance striking defense at 52%. His distance striking differential is an uninspiring negative 1.35. His 4.22 distance strikes per minute landed on 10.13 attempts are about average for the middleweight division. But man, oh man, does he carry power early in fights. All the power comes from the left hand, and when it lands, legs get stanky, brain cells die, and bodies hit the floor. Whatever you do, if you're fighting Punahele Soriano, do not get hit by that big left hand because it's literally all he has. If he doesn't land the big left hand, you're going to win the fight because Puna's got nothing else for you. Now, Dustin Stoltzfus is 1 inch taller, and he's going to have a 3-inch reach advantage. Dustin has the overall experience advantage. He's got 7 more pro fights, 100 more minutes in the pro cage, and over 2 more years as a pro fighter. Dustin will have the better conditioning in this fight. Soriano is explosive. He throws 100% power into all of his strikes, but because of that and all the muscle that he carries on his frame, he slows down fast. Dustin's conditioning will allow him to take over later in the fight if he can avoid the early big left hand from Soriano. I think Dustin's conditioning, along with his high fight IQ, might be able to find ways to get the win over the one-dimensional Punahele Soriano. And Dustin should be the more dangerous and opportunistic submission grappler in this matchup. Dustin's 5 wins and 2 losses to the submission in his pro career, with the only 2 losses by sub coming against 2 of the best submission grapplers in the history of the sport in Gerald Meerschaert and Rodolfo Vieira, 4-time Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu world champion. And, GM3 has got something like 27 career wins by submission. So those are the guys who are submitting Dustin Stoltzfus. Dustin's 5 submission wins that he has to his credit come by way of high elbow guillotine, arm triangle, rear naked choke. He's got a knee bar, and he's got a cheeky twister to his credit. Dustin will go for unusual submissions, and that can catch opponents off guard, and sometimes he can finish fights in ways that nobody expects him to. He's clearly very confident in his grappling game as he took down GM3 4 different times in that fight and willingly grappled with him, winning most of the exchanges until one mistake when he got reversed in the 3rd round, had his back taken, and then he got rear naked choked. Punahele is a good wrestler, but his cardio is really bad. And if you make him grapple, then that already shitty cardio becomes even worse, and the opportunities to take Puna down and snatch up a submission later in this fight could present themselves. Dustin will need to be persistent with the wrestling and grappling in this fight, and if he does that, he could win minutes and potentially moments with his creative Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu game. Now, this is an interesting fight. I'm not really high on either of these guys. Stoltzfus isn't particularly dangerous anywhere, but he's got good conditioning. He's well-rounded with solid fight IQ. Soriano doesn't really offensively grapple because he doesn't have the cardio to do that. He's one-dimensional and front-loaded, and he counts on landing that big left hand in order to win fights. Laying juice on a fighter like Soriano is flat out terrifying. If you bet Puna, get him by his best win condition, which is a 1st or a 2nd round knockout finish. Otherwise, you can count on Soriano slowing down late in the 1st round, which could open the door to Stoltzfus getting takedowns, top control, ground and pound, which could open up submission attempts later on in the fight. I could see Soriano getting a first or a second round KO, and I could even see Soriano winning early, slowing down late, but lasting to the scorecards and winning a decision. But I could also see Dustin weathering the early storm, avoiding the big left hand, getting takedowns in the second and third, wearing on Soriano and winning a close decision, or even getting a late submission in this fight. Both of these guys are on the wrong side of 30. Both guys are on fairly long layoffs and have some holes in their game. But Soriano is minus 255 on the money line right now, and I just can't get behind that. I'll pick Soriano to win this fight by first round knockout with not that much confidence, but I feel as if Dustin Stoltzfus to win by third round submission at something fat like plus 3,000 or better is something I might take a shot on this week. And if I can get a decent sized plus money number on Soriano to win in rounds 1 or 2, like say better than plus 140 or so, that might tempt me to take that shot as well. But the official pick is going to be Puna to win by first round knockout, which is by far his best win condition, as 7 of his 9 career wins come in the first round when he's fresh and explosive. Excuse me, I had a cough there for a second. All right. So, did I X out of the Tapology? Okay, there it is. All right. So let's get Punahele Soriano by first round KO here is the pick. I think if we can get Puna to win in rounds 1 or 2 at plus money, that's a bettable line, because that way now you don't have to lay the juice on Soriano. You could just take him basically by the only way that he wins fights, which is that early finish. And if he doesn't get it, then you know that Stoltzfus is going to be live in the second half of the fight, and you don't have to worry about it. So that's going to be the pick there. Soriano by first round KO, but man, this line is entirely too wide for a one-trick pony with bad conditioning. And really, that if he doesn't land the big left hand, you're going to be very sorry you laid minus 250 on Puna. So anyway, let's see what you guys are saying in the chat here. We got Noah Wharton saying, anyone going to the fights? I'm wondering if anyone's down there in Austin that's going. Jeff Pelton said, I'm pretty sure I've been wrong on Soriano every fight. Wasn't he a favorite against Brendan Allen? Yeah, he was. It was a close line, though, because people knew that Brendan Allen could take down Soriano and style on him on the ground, but Brendan Allen never even had to do that. He just outboxed him. He didn't. I think he only attempted one takedown in that fight. We got Fender Jazz in the room saying, Weezy, just back from a gig and some after beers. Nice. Didn't play any Bootsy, but there was some bass grooves. Nice, man. Bootsy Collins, absolutely one of my favorite bass players of all time. He's an absolute jammer, man, and I love funk, and Bootsy is the king of funk jazz or funk bass, dude. I hope you had a great show, man. I hope you enjoyed the beers. We got Local Man Shakes Fist saying, to Dustin's credit, he was even debatably ahead on the scorecards versus GM3 and Vieira. Agreed. Different stylistic matchup, because Vieira and GM3, you don't have to worry about the striking early in fights like you do against Soriano. So it allowed Stoltzfus to fight at a slower pace and not have to worry about what was coming back his direction. But yeah, man, before getting choked out in the third, he was winning that fight against GM3, and he was probably winning against Vieira as well. Remdog saying, instead of playing Puna, just going to play the under 1.5 at plus 135. Yeah, that's not a bad look either. I think that's Puna's best win condition, is if he doesn't get it done in 7.5 minutes, he's probably not getting it done. J-Bog saying, the only reason I would lean to Soriano is because that Extreme Couture camp is on fire right now. He's got a great camp. He really does. But I just don't think he's got a well-rounded skill set, and his conditioning is a serious problem. Silly Goose saying, any injury reason why Stoltzfus is? I don't know. If we go to the Tapology page here, I'm gonna save these picks, and then if we just go to the Tapology page, we can see if there were any fights that were canceled for Stoltzfus. And we can see, no, he just took over a year off after the Magomedov fight, getting knocked out in the first round. There were no fights scheduled, so I don't know if he got hurt. I don't know why the long layoff. but that would be something to find out to get a little bit more information about this fight. All right, so I'm going to go back here so that we can make our picks. Don't like that number at all either. Agreed, man. We got my guy Swingers in the room saying, great show tonight, Uncle Hefner. Let's stack them like flapjacks this weekend. Let's keep that winning streak rolling, Swinger. We got Rem Dog in there saying, could even bet Stoltzfus live. Yeah, that's not a bad look. If he's still alive at the end of the first round, you might just want to take him because Puna just hasn't shown shit after the 5-minute mark yet. He knocked out Dalcha in the second round, but if you notice, if you go back and you watch that fight, Dalcha's rib comes out at the end of the first round. So he walks away from Puner, and he kind of like very, very gingerly puts his hand on his rib and he looks down and you could see the rib. His rib had become dislocated from the rest of the rib cage and was poking into the skin. So he had no chance of winning that fight. And Puna knocked him out early in the second. But, you know, I mean, like, Dalcha had him tired. Dalcha wore him out with the grappling. So, man, I don't know, dude. Antonio Esparza is saying Stoltzfus is 1-4 in the UFC, and we all know why Puna is fighting him. To get back in the win column. They're probably trying to get a very popular and exciting fighter like Puna back in the win column here. And you know, Stoltzfus is probably a guy that you think he's going to beat. Soriano's performance against Nick Maximov is enough to give me pause for eternity. Yeah, man, Nick just out-wrestled him for 3 rounds. Can probably extend that bulletin through this fight, too. Yeah, man, I mean, I don't have any action on this fight either, but I think I might take a shot on a late Dustin Stoltzfus submission, second or third round submission props. If I can find Punahele Soriano to win in round 1 at a fat number, I might take a shot on that. We'll have to see, man. And we got Caddy Daddy in the room saying, oi, late to the show, but let's cash some tickets. Let's go, Caddy Daddy. All right, let's move on. We've got, I think, 6 fights left. 3, 4, 5 fights left. Here we go. And it's going to be UFC legend and Hall of Famer Clay the Carpenter Guida plus 250 underdog right now to Joaquim Neto BJJ Silva at minus 300. Fight doesn't go to decision for this fight. Is juiced up at minus 170 right now on Bet Online Sportsbook. All the lines that you see on this are always from Bet Online Sportsbook, you guys. So let's first start talking, after I get the stats up on the screen for you guys, about the advantages that Clay the Carpenter Guida is going to have in this fight. Now, you can't talk about a Clay Guida fight without talking about the experience advantage that he has. So not only is he going to have a 1-inch reach advantage over Joaquim Silva, but Clay Guida has 43 more professional fights than Joaquim Neto BJJ Silva, 480 more minutes of pro cage time, and 7 more years as a pro fighter. Since the year 2013, Clay has 10 more fights at the UFC level and 110 more minutes of octagon time than Silva does. Clay's best characteristic, besides his cardio and his beautiful head of hair, is his ability to win minutes with his wrestling, everybody. Clay averages 2.13 takedowns per 15 minutes on 7.37 attempts. He gets his takedowns at a 29% clip, and he outcontrols his opponents 33% to 8%, winning over 80% of the control time positions his fights are in. Silva has a below average 59% takedown defense, and he only wins 12.75% of the control time positions his fights are in. So getting out-controlled 24.27% to 3.55% is what Silva does. You can see here. So the stats are indicating that there's a path for Clay Guida to use his wrestling, top control, and ground and pound to win the minutes of this fight. And Guida has fought, beaten, and lost to the better brand of UFC competition. Guida has fought the more experienced guys with better records, and in particular, his wins rate quite a bit better than Silva's, according to my metric. As we could see, Clay Guida's ratio in wins is 1.05, while it's less than 1 for Silva at 0.72. And the guys that Clay Guida are fighting, 14.78 total UFC fights compared to only 6.2 for Silva. So Clay's beating the more experienced guys, and he's beating the guys with the better win-loss records. Now, Joaquim Silva, on the other hand, there's a lot of reasons to like him. First of all, he's 7 years younger than Clay Guida is, and he's going to be 1 inch taller here as well. Joaquim is definitely the more opportunistic finisher in this fight. He's got an 83% finish rate in his 12 pro wins. That's 10 finishes, 3 by submission, 7 by knockout. And he's finished 3 of his 5 UFC wins. That's 60% by way of knockout. Silva's a high-level Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt who's 3 wins and 0 losses to the submission in his career. And it should be noted that Clay Guida has 11 career losses. 11 career losses by way of submission. So on the feet, Joaquim Silva throws with serious power, and he's got 7 wins by knockout. So wherever the fight goes, Silva is a threat to win moments and finish fights. And Joaquim is very dangerous on the feet. He throws with seriously bad intentions, and all it takes is one big shot to catch you and change the direction of the fight. We saw Silva land a bomb against Tsarukyan the last time out near the end of the second that had him on skates, and 3 of Silva's 5 UFC wins come by way of knockout. He had a really good come-from-behind win against Jared Gordon in the 3rd round. He knocked out Jesse Ronson in the 2nd round with the flying knee, and he finished Andrew Holbrook in 34 seconds by catching him with the right hook when Holbrook tried to get back up after tripping. Joaquim isn't much of a minute winner at distance, but he will certainly be the dude more likely to win moments. And just like at distance striking range, Joaquim is the far more likely moment winner in the grappling exchanges. Joaquim is a high-level Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. He's 3 wins and 0 losses to the submission in his career. We saw him pretty much finish Jared Gordon at the end of the 2nd round of their fight with a Sulayev stretch, leaving Jared severely compromised, allowing Joaquim to finish the fight in the 3rd by KO. Clay has a whopping 11 career losses by submission, and we already discussed the fact that Clay's best avenue to win minutes in this fight is to take Silva down, stay on top, land ground and pound, which could potentially leave him open to the submission attempts from Silva. While Joaquim might lose some minutes on the ground to the superior wrestler in Clay Guida, I still like Joaquim's potential to finish the fight on the ground once it gets there. And I could see this fight playing out like Guida versus Puelli's, with Silva finishing with a leg attack of some variety like Puelli's did versus Guida. So here are some key stats to consider when considering how Clay Guida wins fights in the UFC. Since 2013, Clay's got 9 wins and 10 losses in the UFC. In Clay's 9 wins, he's averaging 3.2 takedowns per 15 minutes and averaging 51.4% control time. In Clay's 10 losses, he's averaging 0.7 takedowns per 15 minutes with only 8.3% control time. So Clay absolutely has to get his wrestling game going in order to win enough minutes to win fights, because his distance striking isn't accurate or powerful enough to win minutes or moments at this level. Silva is allowing 2.44 takedowns per 15 minutes, and he allows over 24% control time to his opponents, winning less than 13% of the control time positions his fights are in. So Clay really needs to exploit Silva's 59% takedown defense, get this fight to the ground, and stay busy enough landing ground and pound while simultaneously avoiding the submission game of Joaquim Silva and not getting dropped by the power that Silva throws with on the feet. In other words, the almost 42-year-old Clay Guida is going to have to fight a near-perfect fight and make very few mistakes that could let a prolific moment winner like Joaquim Silva find his way into the fight. I think it's also so important to remind anyone considering laying minus 320 price tag on Joaquim Silva right now that Silva was finished in back-to-back fights by Nasrat Haqparast and Ricky Glenn, both by knockout. Glenn finished Joaquim Silva in the 1st round of their fight recently, and then he lost his next 2 fights, was finished early in both of them. And Nasrat Haqparast has 7 UFC wins. And his only finish in those 7 UFC wins came against, you guessed it, Joaquim Neto BJJ Silva. Clay catching Silva with a big shot is not out of the realm of possibility, nor is Clay getting a few takedowns and several minutes of control time. So I'm staying away from betting the Silva side this week. And if this leg gets any more out of control, I might even consider sprinkling Guida's money line. That being said, though, I have to respect the youth, the explosive power, and the opportunistic submission game of Joaquim Silva. And I'm going to pick him to win this fight by second round submission. But man, I mean, in my opinion, there are several paths to victory here for Clay Guida. Silva's chinny, you guys. He's very chinny. Look at the shots that he got knocked out by Hack Parast and Glenn by. They're not like these whopping crazy head kicks or anything like that. They're just clean shots that he didn't really see coming. And Joaquim is not a durable guy. So, I mean, I just think it's terrifying to lay juice on a guy that where you're kind of counting on a finish. But yeah, I am going with Silva, first round KO, or I'm sorry, what was it? Second round submission, my bad. Joaquim Silva to win by second round submission is the pick. Let's see what you guys are saying in the chat. F you guys saying I'm feeling the flapjacks. Let's go. We got Levon saying, how much money do you have? I have got not enough, Levon. Not enough. We've got Real Fight Pick saying, what are the chances Clay stays still and doesn't bounce on his toes during the face-off? I would say 0%. I would say 0%. Plus 10,000. Yeah, I mean, like, yeah, I think that would be an accurate line. In Real Fight Picks thinks it's an accurate line as well, man. All right, you guys, let's move on to this next fight. It is going to be Sean Brady, the minus 120 favorite, going up against Kelvin Gastelum, plus 100 underdog. Fight doesn't go to decision for this fight, sitting at minus 130. So, let me get the stats up here for you guys. And there they are. Let me get a sip of my coffee. Another sip. And let's break down this doozy of a fight because it's an absolute beauty. So, Sean Brady, we'll start talking about his advantages first. Sean's 1 year younger. He's 1 inch taller, and he's going to have a 1 inch reach advantage over Kelvin, who's making his return to the welterweight division. Sean is a very well-rounded fighter. He's capable and dangerous wherever the fight goes, and he's shown the ability to win minutes with all the tools that he possesses. Sean's 8 wins and 0 losses to the decision in his pro career, so he doesn't need to depend on the finish to get his hand raised. He can win minutes with his striking or with his suffocating grappling game, and his conditioning has always been on point. And Sean's done a good job of being competitive at distance striking range in the UFC. Even though Sean has a negative 4.2 distance strike attempt differential, he still manages to have a positive 0.13 distance striking differential, which is testament to his efficiency at distance striking range. Sean has way above average 50.56% distance striking accuracy and very responsible 63.5% defense. He stays busy, landing 5.95 distance strikes per minute, which is 1.52 more than the divisional average, and he's landed 1 knockdown in the UFC while absorbing 0. Brady isn't blowing people out of the water at distance, but he isn't losing minutes there either, and Sean's grappling game is definitely good enough to make up for any potential deficiencies he might have at distance in any of his matchups. Now, when you look at the heat map around Sean Brady's grappling stats, which you see right over here, right? This, and this. You see a lot of dark green everywhere, indicating that Sean is above average for the division in every single grappling category, offensive and defensive. Sean has landed 14 UFC takedowns while only yielding 1. Sean outcontrols his opponents 35.5% to 3.5%, winning 91% of the control time positions his fights have been in. Sean's 4 wins and 0 losses to the submission in his pro career. He's a high-level Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt with a crushing top game that sets up his mounted guillotine and arm triangle chokes. Sean can not only get takedowns in the open mat with his freestyle wrestling, but he really excels with his cage wrestling, getting his opponents down, lacing the leg, working towards the back. Once he gets you down, you usually stay there, and he's very high percentage on his UFC takedown attempts. Sean also excels at scrambling. You wouldn't expect a guy as bricked up with muscle to be as fast and agile as he is in the scrambles, but Sean wins almost every single one. Now, Kelvin Gastelum is going to be the southpaw in this southpaw versus orthodox matchup. Kelvin has the overall and UFC experience advantages with 10 more pro fights, 130 more minutes of or pro cage time, and 3.5 more years as a pro. Kelvin also has 15 more UFC level fights and 210 more minutes of UFC octagon time, 3.5 more hours than Sean Brady in the UFC octagon. And Kelvin should have the distance striking advantage in this fight. Over a massive UFC distance striking sample size of over 200 minutes against the best fighters at welterweight and middleweight, Gastelum has tallied a positive 0.31 distance striking differential, 39% accuracy, 61% defense. He's landing a knockdown on 1.04% of the distance strikes that he lands. Kelvin is 6 wins and 0 losses to the knockout in his career, and he's easily one of the most durable guys to ever step in the octagon. Kelvin is deceptively fast. He has a great 1-2 and a bladed stance that allows him to explode in and out of range, and that explosivity does lead to knockdowns. And Kelvin has fought and beaten the better brand of UFC competition over their respective careers. So this is Kelvin Gastelum's first fight at welterweight since the year 2016 when he squared off against Johnny Hendricks. So seeing both these guys on the scale is going to be very important. Sean Brady has had only 1 fight total over the last 2 calendar years, and he's had to pull out of 2 fights already this year due to a groin injury in March and an elbow infection in July. It's the same situation for Gastelum, who has also fought only once in the last 2 years, and Kelvin has had to pull out of 3 different fights since the beginning of 2022. Kelvin had to pull out of the Duplessis fight with an injury in April of 2022. A mouth injury forced him out of the Imavov fight in January of this year, and a facial fracture killed the Shavkat Rakhmonov fight that was supposed to happen in September. Both of these guys have been inactive over the last 2 years, and we also have to worry about how Kelvin will look on the scale. If this fight stays standing, it's reasonable to expect Kelvin can be the better minute and moment winner. But if Sean can get into the clinch and get takedowns, then it's easy to see Brady winning the minutes and the moments on the ground. I didn't like how Brady dealt with the pressure that Bilal put on him in the last fight, and I think Kelvin could be similarly elusive here. Both of these guys are solid strikers, but I see Kelvin being a step ahead of Sean at distance, and fight-ready Gastelum should be ready for the excellent cage wrestling that Brady brings to the octagon. So if Kelvin can stay light on his feet, not let Brady walk him down, control the distance striking range, and land the heavier strikes at range, I see him winning this fight by decision. But all that depends on how Kelvin looks on the scale on Friday. Excuse me. I'm going to assume that the Fight Ready crew will have Kelvin ready for the scales. And if they do, I favor his striking advantage enough to pick him to win this fight by decision. But I'm not very confident because this is just one of those situations where you kind of know if it stays standing most of the fight, Gastelum probably wins. If Gastelum can't stop the takedowns and the cage wrestling of Brady, then Brady's probably going to win the minutes and the moments on the ground, and he probably gets his hand raised. But I'm going to lean with that experience that Gastelum has, the striking advantage that he has on the feet, the speed advantage that he has on the feet, and the strength of schedule advantage, and pick Kelvin Gastelum to win this fight by decision. Let's see what you guys are saying in the chat here. All right. Jeff Pelton saying, going to be weird seeing Kelvin fighting someone his own size. I think he wins a close fight, but when the +3.5 line comes out, I'll play that. Not a bad look, man. Get that extra round in there in case Brady does get some takedowns. Antonio Esparza saying, we just don't know how Brady will fight coming off a loss for the very first time. You think he'll fight timid? Dude, Brady hasn't been in the cage in a minute either. Well over a year layoff here. So it might take Brady a little bit to get into this fight. Layoff matters. Cage rust is the thing. And we're going to see if Brady has any here because he just hasn't been as active. And luckily, he's fighting a guy who's also been very inactive here in Kelvin Gastelum. But that inactivity brings with it a lot of unanswered questions. So, yeah, I think we could see Sean Brady definitely start off slow. The Silly Goose saying, I'm liking Gastelum finish only at +120. Likely pushes, but ain't no way Brady finishing a tough old Mexican like Kelvin. Plus money on this is crazy. He could sub him. You can sub Kelvin Gastelum. You're not fucking knocking that dude out, but you can sub him. So don't be surprised if Brady gets this fight to the ground that he could find a submission with, especially if he gets on top, man. Whether it's that mounted guillotine or whether it's that arm triangle, Sean Brady's got crushing top pressure, and you don't want to be underneath that dude. So I think that he is live for his submission here, but he's not knocking out Gastelum. Nobody's knocking out Kelvin Gastelum. All right, you guys, let's move on to the next fight. And it is going to be Rob Font at -142 going up against Deiveson Figueiredo +122. Fight doesn't go to decision for this one at -125 here. So we get the stats up on the screen, and let's first start talking about the advantages that one Rob Font will have in this matchup. Now, Font will be the much bigger bantamweight as Figgy is making his bantamweight debut here. He is a career flyweight, is Deiveson Figueiredo. So Rob Font's going to be 3 inches taller and have a 3-inch reach advantage over Deiveson. Rob has the overall and UFC experience advantages with 2 more pro fights, 85 more minutes in the pro cage, and 3 months more as a professional. In addition, Rob has 2 more UFC fights and almost 40 more minutes of octagon time. Rob is the better boxer. His UFC distance striking metrics are excellent against top-notch competition in a huge sample size. Rob stays very busy behind a crisp, accurate, and fast jab. He has a positive 2.96 distance striking differential with above average 43.3% accuracy and 60.4% defense. Rob's got 7 UFC knockdowns, and he's 9 wins and 0 losses to the knockout in his pro career, and 6 wins and 0 losses to the knockout in the UFC. Rob has been dropped 7 times, though, in the UFC, but he's never been knocked out. So count Rob Font as being one of the most durable bantamweights in the division over the long term, in a division known for durable guys like Marlon Vera and Pedro Munoz. Rob's activity is very good. He's got a positive 5.87 distance strike attempt differential, so he's attempting almost 6 more strikes per minute than his opponents do at range. His jab and his ability to use that jab to set up his power shots has been his best way to win minutes and moments at the UFC level. Now, Deiveson Figueiredo is a half year younger than Rob Font. Figgy has the better overall finish rate as a pro. It's 81% compared to 65% for Font. And both guys have 70% finish rates at the UFC level. But as Font is more knockout dependent with 6 knockouts and only 1 submission, it's Deiveson Figueiredo who's more of an equal opportunity finisher with 3 submissions and 4 knockouts. And at distance striking range, Deiveson is unusually low volume. You can see here that he's only attempting 6.9 distance strikes per minute, which is 4.8 less than the divisional average. But Figgy has an unusual style that allows him to find small openings and explode with precise, powerful offense that can change the fight when it lands clean. Figgy only lands 3.49 distance strikes per minute. That's 3.92 less than Font lands at 7.41. But Figgy finds those big shots, landing knockdowns on almost 3% of the distance strikes that he lands. Figgy has a whopping 11 knockdowns in only 14 UFC fights. He's a low-volume counter striker, but he's incredibly fast, precise, and explosive. And his snake-like in-and-out movement gives his opponents fits because it's a perfect way for him to find those openings in his opponent's defense. Figgy's distance striking defense leaves a lot to be desired at 53.5%, especially against a taller, longer, and far more active opponent like Font. But it's clear to me that Figgy will be the more explosive and opportunistic striker while this fight is on the feet. He might just lose minutes until he wins a moment, much like Jose Aldo and Marlon Vera did in the Font fights. Figgy's submission grappling is a lot like his striking. It's opportunistic and explosive. Figgy's getting 1.44 takedowns per 15 minutes on 3.42 attempts. He's got above average takedown accuracy at 42%, and he gets 16.2% control time, but he's also very aggressive with his Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He's attempting 1.8 submissions per 15 minutes, which is 1.3 more than the divisional average. So whenever fights are on the mat, Deiveson is always trying to find ways to finish. Figgy attempts and gets 41% of the takedowns in his fights, and he's won 44.4% of the control time positions. So his grappling efficiency is slightly above average, while Font's is slightly below average. So I rate Figgy's minute and especially moment-winning ability in the grappling exchanges to be better than Font's in this matchup. And Figgy's strength of schedule metrics are better according to my rating system. However, it needs to be viewed through the lens of which weight classes these guys fought at. Figgy's metric was accrued at flyweight, while Font's was accrued at bantamweight. And both these guys have 5-round experience. So I would say the strength of schedule is close, and it maybe even favors Rob Font in this one. So what a fight this is. It's going to be very interesting to see how Figgy looks at bantamweight, as this will be his first UFC fight outside of the flyweight division. We know he will still be explosive, fast, and opportunistic everywhere the fight goes, and we might see more pep in his step now that he doesn't have to deal with that horrific weight cut anymore. Font, on the other hand, has always been here at bantamweight, and he will be a tough welcome to the bantamweight division for Deiveson because of how tall, long, and technical of a boxer he is. Font stays very busy. He uses intelligent pressure on the feet, stays behind that crispy, long, and fast jab of his, and he uses that jab to set up his power strikes that have landed him 6 UFC knockouts. Figgy's going to have to find ways to close that distance, but it might be easy for him to do that because of how much Font pressures and goes first with his jab. Font's activity and forward movement will be exactly what Figgy needs to find the openings to counter with his explosive attacks. I honestly could see this fight going a lot like Font versus Vera did if Deiveson can close that distance and effectively counter-strike. But if he can't, this fight might go a lot like Font versus Garbrandt, where Figgy could just get his face jabbed off for the full 3 rounds if he can't find ways to get inside of that 3-inch reach advantage Font has over him. I'm not confident in either side. How will Figgy look at 135? Does Font's forward movement and massive volume create the necessary openings for Figgy to win moments? The one stylistic read I am confident in is that Figgy should be the more explosive and opportunistic finisher wherever the fight goes, especially in the grappling exchanges. So one bet I'm looking at here is a Deiveson Figueiredo finish-only prop at around even money. These guys have combined for 18 UFC knockdowns, and they're 13-0 combined in the UFC when they land a knockdown. So a lot of this fight is going to come down to who can land the bigger shots at range. The official prediction is going to be Deiveson Figueiredo to win this fight by 2nd-round submission. So I'm picking Deuce de Guerra to get this one done by 2nd-round submission over Hobby Font. And I think it's going to be a great fight, but outside of maybe a finish-only stab on Figgy around even money, I think I want to see this one play out, and I want to see Deiveson get one fight under his belt at bantamweight before I really come to a conclusion about how he's going to look in this division. So let's see what you guys are saying in the chat here. We've got Silly Goose is saying, I'm liking Gastelum finish only at plus 120. Yeah, we talked about that one already. Robbie jabs with that reach. Yeah, he does, man. Robbie's got great boxing, and his jab is a problem. I don't get this fight at all. Is the UFC trying to push Figgy to the 135-pound title because Font is 1-3 in his last 4 fights? This fight is weird. I mean, figure weight, this is the bantamweight division. It's so much better than the flyweight division. The bantamweight division is the most stacked division in the entire UFC. So getting Figgy into the top 5 of this division is going to take a while. So I mean, they're just trying to find him a spot. I mean, like they're moving him up in weight class, but they're giving him one of the biggest bantamweights on the roster. So I'm interested to see how this one goes. We got Jeff saying Figgy throws 3.49 looping hooks per minute. Yeah, he does, man. And they are dangerous, dude. We got the Golden Octagon in the room saying, Oi, what are the odds of me catching my favorite uncle alive while I'm on vacation in Montego Bay, Jamaica, having a bowl of some delicious candy? Well, it's happening. Life is good. Enjoy your vacation, brother. I'm sure Jamaica is absolutely lovely this time of year. Listen to some Yellow Man. Listen to some Bob Marley. Listen to some Sister Nancy. Enjoy the music. Enjoy the chronic. Enjoy the beaches. Enjoy the good people. Jamaica, stand up. We got Silly Goose in the room. Can't get behind Font with those visuals of him getting wobbled all over the place. Yeah, man. That's the thing, is that Figueiredo could be getting jab, losing. One big shot. It was just like the Vera fight. Vera got outlanded by like 100 strikes in that fight, but he kept landing big shots that would change the rounds near the end of the round. Biggie can't deal with being the nail. Yeah, that's another thing that I'm worried about, is how is he going to take shots at 135? Calf kicks are there for Figgy. Yes, sir. We got Matt R saying, Jordan J. Boog, what's up? We got Real Fight Pig saying, this is going to be like when Rose went up in weight. It's not going to look great. Yeah, we'll see, man. Cheeky Elbow saying, do you think Figgy's a better grappler than Sandhagen? I think he's a more opportunistic submission grappler than Corey Sandhagen is. But I think Corey Sandhagen is the better wrestler, and I think he's the better minute winner with his wrestling and top control. Matt R saying, Rose looked great. Don't know what fight you were watching. Cheeky, no. Yeah, I mean, I think that it's a different kind of thing. I think Figgy's more likely to get submissions. I think Sandhagen's more likely to win minutes. What's Font's takedown defense over the long term? And as always, you can find it right here on my stats in the Patreon. 47% takedown defense. He's allowed 25 takedowns on 47 attempts. And he's getting controlled 23.64% of the time. He's got below average grappling efficiency. And Figgy will be the first man to knock Font out. It is a possibility. All right, you guys, let's get to the co-main event of the evening. It's going to be Jamey-Lyn the Tarantula Turner at minus 225 going up against Bobby King Green at plus 190. Fight doesn't go to decision here, sitting around minus 150 for this fight. So let's first start talking about Jamey-Lyn the Tarantula Turner here, as he's going to have massive measurables advantages like he does in every fight. He's almost 9 years younger than Bobby Green. He's 5 inches taller, and he's going to have a 6-inch reach advantage in addition to being the southpaw in this southpaw versus orthodox matchup. So Bobby's going to have to deal with all of that, and that's not going to be easy. Jamey-Lyn has always been a savage finisher of fights. He's got a 100% career finish rate in 13 pro wins, 4 submissions, 9 knockouts. Jamey-Lyn has unusual power for a skinny dude, and those unusually long limbs of his make him a unique challenge to deal with in grappling exchanges, because Jamey-Lyn can get chokes that normal-sized dudes would never be able to pull off. So wherever the fight goes, Jamey-Lyn is a seasoned moment winner and finisher of fights. Jamey-Lyn's distance striking metrics at the UFC level are very good. He's got a positive 0.57 distance striking differential while staying very busy, attempting 14.41 distance strikes per minute. 2.91 more than the divisional average, and 4.87 more than his opponents do per minute. Jamey-Lyn has 5 knockdowns in 10 UFC fights, and he's landing a knockdown on 1.66% of the distance strikes that he lands. Jamey-Lyn's opponents really have a really difficult time dealing with his height and reach, and Jamey-Lyn uses those gifts to his advantage by maintaining distance with his teep kicks up the middle and straight down the pipe punches. Jamey-Lyn will be the one pressuring here, and he will be the longer and more powerful striker in this matchup. And Jamey-Lyn is a dangerous submission grappler due to the absurd height and length that he brings into the octagon. He's 4 wins and 0 losses to the sub in his pro career, and 3 of his 6 UFC wins come by way of submission. Turner can use those long-ass arms and legs of his to get chokes from angles that his opponents aren't used to having to defend against. Jamey-Lyn also has above-average grappling efficiency at the UFC level, because even though he only attempts 16% of the takedowns in his fights and only gets 29% of the total takedowns in his fights, he's getting almost 39% of the control time positions. So Jamey-Lyn's dangerous submission game, combined with his ability to be able to win some minutes on top and get back up when he's taken down, make him a difficult puzzle to solve in the grappling exchanges. Now, Bobby Green is going to have the overall and UFC experience advantages with 27 more pro fights, 340 more minutes of cage time, and 8 more years as a pro fighter. Green also has the UFC experience advantage with 13 more fights and 185 more minutes of octagon time. Bobby is a very slick boxer with a unique style. Over an almost 200-minute sample size of UFC distance striking metrics, Bobby has a positive 2.35 distance striking differential with way above average 48.6% accuracy and 64.26% distance striking defense. Bobby keeps his hands low and his punches come from his hip. He throws straight down the pipe and in combination. He's always moving his head, making him a hard target to find, and he does an excellent job of bringing his feet with him while he switches stances so that he can throw multiple power punches in combination while moving forward. Bobby's fast, accurate, busy. He talks a ton of shit, and it makes him a unique puzzle to solve at distance striking range. And Bobby's an efficient grappler. He has a wrestling background. He was a 2-time state qualifier in the state of California in high school. He gets 1.13 takedowns per 15 minutes on 2.89 attempts, and he outcontrols his opponents 15.2% to 9.6%, winning over 61% of the control time positions his fights are in, despite only attempting 42% of the takedowns and getting 50% of the takedowns in his fight. So Bobby's efficient. He gets his takedowns and he stuffs them at above average percentages for the division, and he's a really good scrambler. So winning minutes off of Bobby Green in the grappling exchanges is not an easy task. Green prefers to keep fights standing, and he does a great job of using his wrestling in reverse to achieve that objective. And Bobby has fought, beaten, and lost to the better and more experienced brand of UFC competition. And in particular, his 12 UFC wins come over guys with combined records of 90 wins and 67 losses, while Jamey-Lyn's 6 UFC wins come against guys with a combined record of 17 wins and 15 losses. I'd say Bobby has been tested at a higher level and passed tougher tests thus far in the UFC compared to Jamey-Lyn Turner. So this is a short notice opportunity for Jamey-Lyn Turner. Green was originally scheduled to fight Dan Hooker, and now he gets a similar style of opponent in Jamey-Lyn Turner on just over a week's notice. Turner missed weight in his last fight against Hooker, and it definitely looked to affect him later in the fight as he showed signs of fatigue and his punches became more labored. Turner is a huge lightweight, and trying to make 156 pounds on 7 days' notice is a very tall order, but not as tall of an order as making weight and beating a well-tested, well-rounded, and conditioned fighter like Bobby Green. Obviously, Turner being almost 9 years younger, 5 inches taller, and having a 6-inch reach advantage are really important factors to consider, as are Turner's power, way more dangerous kicking game, and submission game. I'm worried about the short notice on the Turner side, and I want to see how this weight cut goes before I have a confident opinion about how this fight is going to go. It remains to be seen how Green deals with the height, length, and kicks of Turner, and I worry about how Turner will look in the later rounds if he's unable to get Green out of there early. I see Turner pressuring, backing Green up to the fence, and trying to unload with a big shot. And Turner's kicks should do a great job of not only maintaining range, but also slowing down and cutting off Green's lateral movement. If Turner has a good weight cut and is ready to go a hard 3 rounds, I definitely favor him to win this fight. And I even think he finds a finish in the second round via KO. However, if Turner does have another bad weight cut, and as a result, he slows down like he did in the second half of the Hooker fight, then I think Green is a very live underdog. And I think Green round 3 or by decision is in play as a great bet. For now, I will make the very dangerous assumption that Turner shows up on weight and ready to go a hard 3 rounds. And because of that assumption, I'm going to pick him to win by second round knockout. But if Turner has a rough weight cut and it looks like the short notice nature of the fight is going to affect him due to the weight cut on 7 days notice, I'll be looking to either pounce on the Bobby Green money line or that round 3 or decision prop. But like I said, I will make that dangerous assumption that Jalen Turner is going to be ready to go on 7 days notice, that he's going to make weight and that he's going to have the conditioning to go the hard 3. And if that's the case, I'm going Turner by knockout, right? Yeah, knockout in the second round. But that pick might change after I see him on the scales on Friday. We will see. Because if Turner does not make weight, or it looks like he had a really bad weight cut, I think Bobby Green's money line will be a very good bet this week. And that gets us to the main event of the evening. Let's see what you guys are saying in the chat. Jeff is saying, okay, Weezy, you turned me on to Gooden. How about Turner? Is he making weight? I don't know. We're gonna have to find out. I don't think we have to make any moves on this fight until we see Jalen Turner on the scale, because then we'll have the necessary information to make a more educated decision. Jeff saying Bobby hasn't been submitted in 13 years. Yeah, I know. But Bobby also has never fought anybody in the last 13 years that's 6'3" with a 78-inch reach. So, there could be a lot of firsts here. Silly Goose saying Bobby hasn't fought any submission grapplers for a while, aside from Makhachev, who chose to pound him out. It's a good point. I think if Turner gets him down, the sub will come fairly quickly. It potentially could, man. Okay, so if Turner missed weight and looks bad on Friday, will you play Green's money line? There's a very good chance that I will, if I don't like the way that Turner looks on this scale. The fact that Green hung in with Fiziev is comforting. Yeah, and Fiziev is going to brings a very similar kick-heavy attack that Jalen Turner does. But, the difference in height is alarming. He likes Green live or by decision, does Cheeky Elbow. All right, you guys, let's move on to the main event of the evening. 65 of you in here live. Please hit that thumbs up. Please hit the subscribe if you haven't already. Leave me a comment down below, and please consider joining the Patreon so you can get access to these phenomenal stats that you see right here on Just a Tip with your Uncle Weezy every week on YouTube. Appreciate all you guys, and that brings us to the main event of the evening. Beneil Dariush, plus 235, going up against Arman Tsarukyan at minus 275. Fight doesn't go to decision at minus 200. This fight is scheduled for 5 rounds. So, Beneil Dariush is more experienced overall and at the UFC level. He's got 13 more fights in the UFC. He's got almost 100 more minutes, about 80 more minutes in the UFC cage. Beneil Dariush is probably just as good of a striker as Arman Tsarukyan. I believe that Beneil Dariush and Arman Tsarukyan's wrestling is on par with each other, but I do know that Beneil Dariush is the better submission grappler. He's the more well-rounded guy. He's a world champion no-gi Brazilian jiu-jitsu guy. Arman Tsarukyan has had really good wrestling metrics. at the UFC level. But when you notice that these guys are fighting a very similar level of competition, and that Beneil Dariush actually controls his opponents 40% of the time, Tsarukyan gets about 38% control time, and Dariush gets controlled a less percentage of the time than Tsarukyan does. So, I mean, I think that this is a very close fight. I really like Arman being 7 years younger. You know, being a 27-year-old fighting a 34-year-old, especially when you fought similar levels of competition, that's very comforting to have the younger guy. I think Tsarukyan's definitely the more explosive guy on the feet. I think Tsarukyan's the better conditioned athlete, the guy that would be more likely to look good in the championship rounds of this fight, as we've seen him go 5 rounds in the UFC. But that's something that we've never seen Beneil Dariush do. And we've seen Dariush kind of slow down later on in fights. Also, Dariush is not a durable guy. Dariush has been finished in all 5 of his UFC losses, 4 times by knockout, 1 time by submission. So Tsarukyan's younger, he's more explosive, he's more athletic, and I think he's more likely to finish this fight. But if there isn't a finish, and it just comes down to who wins the minutes here, you know, I think Beneil Dariush, especially at this number, is very live. The market gets Beneil wrong all the time. The market had Beneil as a plus 170 underdog to Mateusz Gamrot, and he looked much better than that. And then they had Dariush as a favorite against Charles do Bronx Oliveira, who was just coming off from being champion. And he wound up getting blown out of the water, getting smoked in the first round of that fight. And now I think they've got Dariush wrong again by thinking that he's over the hill or done. This guy's still only 34 years old. He looks older than he is because of the gray hair on his head, but he's had that gray hair since he was in his 20s. So, you know, Beneil Dariush still isn't even 35 years old. And if you want to talk about skill for skill, you know, Beneil Dariush is on par with Arman Tsarukyan on the feet, in the wrestling, and in the grappling. But we do like the youth. We do like the explosiveness of Tsarukyan. We do like the fact that he's fought very good level of competition here. You see Dariush, the combined records of his opponents, 216 and 147. But Tsarukyan, 57 and 30. I mean, he's even got a better ratio overall at 1.9 to 1 than Dariush does at 1.47 to 1 in terms of the level of competition that he's faced. And if you put those the win numbers, Dariush's wins just a hair better than Tsarukyan's. So these guys are very well matched, but I think it would be silly to pick Dariush here, because the 5-round nature of this fight and the conditioning advantage and the youth advantage and the explosiveness advantage that Tsarukyan has, you just can't ignore all of that. But, you know, Dariush is very explosive in his own right. He can land big shots on the feet, and he's always live to land a submission on the ground with his great wrestling, great top control, great minute winning and moment winning in the grappling exchanges. You know, I mean, I think this one's going to come down to who does the better work in the grappling, who gets the takedowns, who scrambles better, who gets more control time, and who has the better submission attempts. And I think that this fight's going to be very close. Beneil Dariush has all the value on the money line side here, but I'm going to pick Arman Tsarukyan to win this one, to outlast Beneil Dariush, and to get a 4th round knockout win. But Beneil Dariush plus 235, I think, is a very solid system type bet. I haven't pulled the trigger on it yet. I'm gonna continue to wait to see where this line goes. But I think Beneil is very live at this price, and I think you're kidding yourself if you think that skill for skill, outside of the youth, the conditioning, the finishing ability, the durability of Tsarukyan are all advantages. But just if you look at it through the lens of who's the better grappler and who's the better striker, I think they're right on each other's level. But yeah, the pick is going to be Tsarukyan by 4th round knockout. Let's see what you guys are saying in the chat here, and then we will finish up this show. Antonio saying if Turner loses this fight, he would lose 3 in a row. MMA is crazy. I know, man. It is. It is. It's just that kind of a sport. You could be on top of the world one year and be an afterthought the next. Antonio Esparza is saying, I really like Arman as a fighter, but he's giving me major fraud vibes. His last performance against Silva scares me. Also, this fight is giving me the same vibes as Benny's last fight against Charles. Everybody was counting Charles out for some weird reason, and now everybody's counting Benny out. I picked Oliveira over Dariush as the ass shaving of the week. I bet him at plus 200 to win inside the distance. I look like a genius that week, you know? But it's because the market's been getting Benny wrong, and I think they got him wrong right now at plus 235 here. Forget if he beat Charles. If Benny never fought Oliveira at all, then what do you think line we'd be looking at? I mean, especially with Dariush coming off the win against Gamrot and Tsarukyan losing to Gamrot. I mean, you might even see Dariush as the favorite or at least a pick 'em. But like I said, 4 major reasons that Tsarukyan is the favorite here. 7 years younger, more durable, the more explosive finisher, and the better conditioning. I think all those things that you'd be silly to argue any of that. Is the sub live for Beneil with how often Arman shoots? Yes, it is. The sub is always live for Beneil. He's a world champion no-gi grappler. Plus fades, yeah. So, all right, you guys, let's go right now to my tracked bets for this card. And they are, we have a 2-leg parlay. I've got the over 1.5 rounds for Joe Solecki versus Drakkar Klose at minus 190. Parlayed with the under 1.5 rounds for Zach Reese versus Cody Brundage at minus 200. That comes out to plus 129, and that's a 1-unit bet. I've got Joe Solecki to win by decision over Drakkar Klose at plus 275 for 1/2 unit. And I've got a 1.5 unit bet on Steve Garcia versus Melquizael Costa to go under 1.5 rounds at plus 132. All those bets came on Bet Online Sportsbook. I'll be looking to add some more bets, but right now only 3 units of tracked action on this card. The next order of business is going to be your Bootsy Collins Memorial Dogs Are Barking pick of the week. This is where I'm going to give you an underdog pick that I think is going to win the fight, a plus money number that I think is going to cash. And as I have Joe Solecki winning this fight by decision at plus 275, I will give you the Joe Solecki money line as this week's Bootsy Collins Memorial Dogs Are Barking pick of the week. I think the forward pressure that Drakkar Klose brings on the feet will play right into the hands of Joe Solecki's duck under takedowns where he could try to get to the back standing and can try to pull the opponent on top of him. Once he gets to your back, he usually wins the round and can potentially even win the fight. Drakkar Klose has never been submitted before, so I do think the most likely path for Joe Solecki is to win this fight by decision if he were to win it. That number is a lot fatter at plus 275, but Solecki is a very accomplished submission grappler, so I think it's more responsible to make the dog pick of the week about a even money bet here, and that's on Joe Solecki's money line at plus 102. So you guys in the chat, what do you think? Who do you think is going to be Uncle Weezy's ass shaving of the week this week? Because that is the next order of business and the last order of business of this show. Which one of these guys is going to win and win violently? We got Dariush versus Tsarukyan, Turner versus Green, Font versus Figueiredo, Brady versus Gastelum, Guida versus Silva, Soriano Stoltzfus, Tate versus Avila, the 1-800-GAMBLER fight of the week, Reese Brundage, Klose Solecki, Garcia Costa, Bellato against Ihor Potieria. We got Turman Gooden, and we got Hardy Horth. Who do you guys think is going to get their ass shaved this week? Which one of these people loses in such a spectacular fashion that it's going to have you going, oh, shit, that dude just got his ass shaved? And of course, if we're counting on somebody to get their ass shaved, who better than the Ukrainian fraud, Ihor Potieria? Yes, I know it's a wide line, but guess what? In our last 2 weeks, we're 0-1-1 in the ass shaving of the week. I gave you an underdog 2 weeks ago with Vyacheslav Borshev, who wound up, getting us a draw. He shaved that dude's ass for 13 of 15 minutes of the fight, but he got caught once, and that dude was incredibly durable, as was Borshev. So we hit a draw. The next week, I gave you Jonathan Pierce, one of my favorite fighters. He was on his way to shaving ass, and then he got caught. So we got to get it back. We got to get back on the winning path. So when we're going to do that, we take a guy that has a massive grappling advantage here in Rodolfo Bellato against a guy with piss poor takedown defense in Ihor Potieria. I think Bellato goes out there, takes this fraud down, gets to a dominant position, and either ground and pounds him out in the first round or submits him, shaves his ass, leaves that hair in the octagon, walks out with his arms raised, and tells his Uncle Weezy we're back on an ass shaving of the week streak. Thank you guys for hanging out. 2 hours and 20 minutes on this week's Just a Tip, but we had to break down 13 fights. We gave you all the tracked bets. We gave you the Bootsy Collins Memorial Dogs Are Parking pick of the week. You got Uncle Weezy's ass shaving of the week. And now we're all ready to stack cashed tickets like flapjacks because we put in the hard work and we did the research. Check me out tomorrow on Pub Sports Radio at 8 o'clock Central Time for the DFS show with DFS by the Numbers, Monk Maddox, and Gordo Gambles. And then right back here tomorrow night, 10 o'clock Central Time for Ask Weezy, so that I will bust out my database of stats. I'll bust out my prop template. I'll bust out these stats. I'll bust out the significant strike template. We can talk prize picks. We can talk underdog. And I've already got a prize picks play. I'll give that out tomorrow on Ask Weezy as well. And maybe I'll even throw it out there on Twitter for you guys. Appreciate each and every one of you for watching. Hit that thumbs out. Hit that thumbs up if you haven't already on your way out. Hit that subscribe. Leave me a comment down below. And we will see you guys tomorrow right back here on this channel for Ask Weezy, 10 o'clock Central Time. Y'all have a great night. And let's stack cashed tickets like flapjacks for UFC Austin. Good night, everybody.